Friday, everyone. Right, it is Friday, right? Yeah, happy Friday, everyone. We got a great show coming up today. You probably already know it. I'm running behind as per usual. So bear with me as we do the little Instagram live welcome. But please let me know how you're doing in chat. I hope everyone is doing fantastic. I sure am, because it's Friday. Oh man. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna make my little story real quick. And on the docket today, we got Kamal. I'm not entirely sure how to say his last name, but we will ask him. He's running for treasurer of Fontana. And then later on, we are going to be looking through Nate Silver's newest thing called FLIPR. We'll check it out together. All right, let me do this story so I can tag everyone. Let me put my glasses on. Let me put my man makeup on, my glasses. If only I had a beard. Well, actually, my mustache is coming in pretty good right now. Gotta pluck it. Gotta wax it. But we'll get there. Sorry. Okay. Happy Friday, everyone. We got a fantastic stream coming up. Person running for treasurer on stream. That's right. We got Kamal coming on in a couple of minutes. I'm excited because he's probably a numbers guy. I'm a numbers gal. I love money. No, we love counting money, right? But yeah, we got a great stream coming on. So be sure to hit that link and join us. Later on, we will also be talking about Nate Silver's latest election tracker for the midterms. Some of you might remember his 538. But yeah, we're going to be talking about that plus some other IE news, so be sure not to miss it. Alright, and I just want everyone in chat to know that my phone is at 7%. We are going to plug it in right now. Also, I gotta fix my boom mic? This is literally a boom mic? Hey, but shown in a box, I'm a numbers guy. Patrick Bet David, I'm a numbers guy. Okay, sorry. We got 15 minutes until Kamal comes in here. Interview with Kamal for Fontana Treasurer at noon. Oh yeah, sorry, I kind of low-key like this song, so we'll turn it up a little bit. Better Dino page. All right, that's good. All right. Okay, let's get started in So like I said, let's briefly, you know what, I want to briefly while we're waiting for Kamal. Um not Paul Krugman. You know what? Let's talk about my election tracker. My own very own election tracker. How do I go to my own page? There we go. There we go. Amazing. Amazing. All right. So, Stardust City Hag said, Oh, wait, no. Bashon in a box said, please charge it. God. Yes, we're charging it. It's plugged in now. It is at 16%. Oh, my God. My story did not upload. Hold on. Let me go back to Instagram to let that shit upload. Oh, my God. Okay. Okay. I think it's done. 95% uploaded. Here, I'm gonna show chat this my phone screen. There you go. You can see the battery and the upload is still happening. It's at 17% battery. All right. All right. So thank you for joining me, everyone. My name is Angelina Tucci. We are politics nerds today. We are numbers nerds today. The Shonen in a Box said, for the sake of all his holy and for Lindo, charge your phone before it dies. Thank you, Father Lindo. Actually, Bashonen in a Box, kind of related to our conversation earlier. You know how we were talking about if priests are why we call priest fathers, right? I just remembered that when priests refer to each other, they actually don't call each other father; they call each other brother. So, Oni-chan lindo. All right, all right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're goofing around, but it's Friday. It's Friday, and it is fun day. So, okay. I think my story uploaded. Yes. Okay. Cool. 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 Okay. We are good to start streaming. Yeah. Let me briefly go over this little election tracker I posted. Sorry. Let me get my. That is so cute. Thanks. I had no idea about the brother thing. Yeah, yeah. And like even when they're in the seminary, when priests are in the seminary, like they're for sure referred to as brother. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Um, but like when they graduate to priest, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. They graduate to priest. Then they become a father. So don't I'm no expert on on Catholicism, but we're getting there. All right. So briefly before we get started with the interview, I posted this insane Excel sheet. Yeah, see, brother of the church, my brother in Christ. That's where it comes from. You know that meme, my brother in Christ. Um. So yeah, back to my election tracker. I am so excited for this. I had no idea that there were so many numbers people out there. And so like this is my best performing Substack post so far. Like this has like, look, it has 2 likes. I'm one of them. Usually it only has 1 like, and it's just me. But yeah. So let me explain it a little bit. As you all know, the one of the main goals on the channel here is, and I think we're gonna make it like an official like goal, you know, like if I was on Twitch, this would be my, if I achieve this goal, then we're gonna cut off all my hair or dye it a different color. That would be the goal. My goal is to interview all of these people on this list. And it's like almost 300 people. And so far, I think I've got 4 people off this list. So we're about to cross out another one today. But yeah, this started as a project just for myself to keep track of the different different people running for. Well, I have another ginormous list on the side for myself that has all of the politicians in the Inland Empire. Like I started this like way over a year ago. I think I started this when I first started my channel. So I have this ginormous Excel spreadsheet that I've been calling my Poke-E Dex. And it's just all the politicians of the IE. And it has like it's just a reference sheet for me, really. But you know, I'm like, this is a lot of good data that other people could use. So we're gonna start publishing that. We're gonna start publishing it, and we're gonna start doing more. At the bottom of this post, I got a fantastic comment from a professor of economics. That's right. This is all numbers. This is a numbers broadcast only. And homie was just like, "Hey, this is a great project. You know, we should link up together and work on it." So, I still need to reach back out to him via email because I had my Substack connected to an email that I don't ever use. And so I saw that he had like sent me quite a few messages, and I'm like, "Damn it, I'm so sorry I never got back to you." But Professor MacDonald, I will get back to you, and we will work on this together because I need help with the Excel sheets. Numbers only. Yes, it's a numbers only stream and Excel sheet only stream. So, anyways, it got me really nostalgic. Man, I miss my professional jobs where all I used to do was just put data into Excel sheets. Which was really fun because literally my job was just doing that and watching Hassan Piker stream on the side. And it was the best jobs I have ever had. But like all good things, they must come to an end. And now we are on the opposite end of it, where I get to do numbers and I get to be Hassan Piker and stream at the same time. So, you know, don't ever let anyone not to have, don't ever let anyone tell you that your dreams cannot come true. But yeah, just so a little bit of motivational speech Friday. Be sure to like this video if you haven't liked it already. It helps get the word out there to everyone else. But a little bit of motivation is that, you know, just keep your head up, keep your head clear, and keep walking. That's it. Just, you know, try to stay calm and collected, and don't let anyone, you know, try to trip you or get in your way. And if they do, just get up. This is the advice I've been giving myself for like personally for my own morning pep talks and stuff. Because, you know, stuff is hard out there. The world is crazy right now. And yeah, so it's like we can't be all doom and gloom. We can't be accelerationist. We have to find little bits of joy where we can, and continue working, helping our fellow brothers and sisters, our neighbors, do what we can. I mean, get through it, because it really will. You know, they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I think it takes a village to raise a village, if that makes sense. So anyways, I'm really excited about this. The ranking is just 100% my interest. So Fontana, the city of Fontana, is the biggest race for me right now. In the Inland Empire, to me, that is one of the most important races, and also we have a lot of great candidates. So yeah, be sure to check this out. I will be making more updates to it and posting those as I can. So yeah, let me get this Zoom meeting open and started. Let me get my OBS camera going. Yeah, there we go. All right, and then we will wait for Kamal to come in. There we go. So yeah, but yeah, you know, the numbers is crazy. Stock market is kind of going crazy, but not too much. Well, I mean, I want to say it's not going crazy, but we just put 50% tariffs on Canada. Yeah. Okay. Let's see if New York Times will paywall me. No. Okay. We can. Oh, they paywalled me. They paywalled me. Here you go. Wall Street Journal. Okay. Looks like no paywall. Just a bunch of ads. Okay, we'll read this while we're waiting for Kamal to come in. So yeah, US and Canada are bracing for prolonged trade dispute. Few see off-ramp as Trump faces political pressure in advance of midterm elections. The US and Canadian governments, along with business in both countries, are bracing for prolonged trade dispute that could last until after the midterm election, according to people familiar with their thinking. Washington and Ottawa are locked in on a tariff tit for tat after last minute talks broke down over the weekend. The Trump administration on Saturday imposed 50% tariffs. So again, we're going with the reciprocal tariffs, or this is not even reciprocal, this is just like punishing tariffs on 20 billion of Canadian goods, leading Prime Minister Mark Carney to retaliate with similar tariffs on a range of US goods effective September 8th. And this is not only going to be bad for business. This is not only going to be bad for business in Canada and business in America. It's going to be bad for for consumers because the prices are going to go up. In response to Carney's retaliation, President Trump blasted Canada on social media and threatened to rename Lake Ontario Lake America. He also said he would increase tariffs on Canadian vehicles further, doubling them to 50%. So my question is what are the vehicles that Canada is producing? They're most likely vehicles that get sold in the United States. That's freaking crazy, bro. I don't know. I don't think Canada has their own car company, so I'm just assuming that it's either Ford or GM or some Japanese car companies, maybe even Volkswagen, that are in Canada that has manufacturing plants there. And one of the best things about NAFTA was that it opened up this trade to have multiple manufacturing across, especially for automotive manufacturing, for Canada, USA, and Mexico. And that was a really good move, but we had to get rid of that because Trump said NAFTA was a bad deal. And so now we have the USMCA Act, which is just basically NAFTA, but with Trump's name on it. Okay, so anyways, let's continue. Which could imperil the North American automotive industry, where parts zip back and forth across the border several times before they are assembled into a vehicle. The next phase of Trump's tariffs, however, won't take effect until January 1st, 2027, giving both sides plenty of time to return to the negotiating table. The best thing to do is just let some water under the bridge and give everyone time and space to cool down, said Kellyanne Shaw, deputy director of the National Economic Council in Trump's first term. I don't see any possibility of an off-ramp between now and September, she said, adding, let's see where things are in December. In an interview with Canadian Broadcasting Corporation television program on Wednesday, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said that it is not clear what it would take to get both sides back to the table. We don't have an open channel right now, he said. All right, we got Kamal in here. Let's see, admit. And let me fix the audio. Hey, Kamal, give me just a second here to get the audio right for everyone watching on stream. But it's good to have you here.
Hey, Angelina, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Perfect. Thank you. I can hear you. Chat can hear you. Thank you so much. All right,
Okay, great.
everyone. Kamal, and can you please tell me how to say your last name? I want to make sure I get it right.
Sure, it's Namou.
Namou?
Yeah.
Kamal Namou. Heck yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining us to Kamal Namou, running for Fontana City Treasurer. So yeah, thank you for coming on the stream to talk about your campaign and I guess a little bit about what a city treasurer would do because not every city has an elected treasurer. But first things first. On the show here, we like to ask people because this is an Inland Empire focused broadcast. Were you born in the IE? If you weren't born in the IE, what is keeping you here in the IE? What do you love so much about Fontana?
Great question. Very fair question, I think. So I'm actually not from the IE. I was actually born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts.
Hey.
Um, but I will say, on a political spectrum, I think they're very similar. It's a very, it's a liberal area. School's important there, and there's a lot of young people like here. And that's why I felt a connection when I did decide I wanted to move and branch out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One of the reasons that I came out here to California and specifically this greater Los Angeles area is for its diversity. In Boston, there is diversity in the Boston area, but once you get outside the city, it's not as much. And coming from Middle Eastern background, even though, you know, I was growing up in a predominantly Jewish area and all this, you would still see a lot of that racism and that stereotypicalness just because of my name associated with it. And I would, get bullied and such. And when I was younger, and it always left a bad taste in my mouth, and it actually motivated me to get into politics when I was young, and especially seeing from Iraq, my family. So seeing that growing up, never being able to go visit my heritage and all that because of politics. So I wanted to give back. I felt blessed to have an opportunity to be here in this country. And so I thought California, that's the land of dreams, and I wanted to move there. So I came out here with my family, and we live out here now. And Fontana is just such a you could just tell when you came it was such a tight-knit community. It's about family, it's about immigrants, it's about, respect and honor, and that's what I really value a lot about. And I did go to Los Angeles at first, but it was a little too much there, a little,
Yeah.
so I wanted something a little bit more where you can focus on that family and getting down to small businesses and really being able to help and reach out where I think it's a little bit convoluted in LA. So I settled down here in Fontana. I think it's an up and coming area. I think there's a lot of great opportunities here where the American dream can really be made. That's why I want to stay here. I don't plan to ever leave here.
Yeah.
I have my roots set here. I own property here, so there's not really any reason for me to leave. And I want to give back because Fontana is now giving me so much that it's not right to not try to give back to the community, especially people who, like I said, may not have the same opportunities. And I don't think that's fair. I think we all should have the same opportunities in this world, especially in America.
Yeah.
So, that's what kind of motivated me to come out here and run for politics, running for city treasurer specifically, because I think that, and it's just the world we live in. Money kind of runs everything, right? And so
Yep.
I think it's important for people to have a city treasurer who's looking out for them and representing everybody in the community, not just the few or just the north and versus the south. And no, it should be all of Fontana. And so, yeah, I'm here for the long haul.
That's cool. That's cool. Thank you for that. What year did you move to Fontana, or I should say, when did you move from Boston?
2022,
Okay.
so I was kind of stuck a little bit in Boston longer than I wanted to be because I went to law school. So that kind of delayed it. I wanted to actually come to California before COVID, back in
Mm.
2019, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I had kind of recently got out of college and looking to start my career and all that. And I actually had some independency for once to make those kind of decisions. You're not really
Yeah.
can't really choose where you're born and raised. But
Yeah.
after that, once you're like 22 and 23 and you start figuring it out, so that was what I wanted to do. But then I decided to go to law school. So when I was applying for law schools, I applied out here to California. I wanted to come since then. Like I said, it was always a plan to come out here to
Yeah.
this area. But just with money wise and grants and the connections, it just kind of worked out better for me over there. So
Mm-hmm.
I just stayed there. My family was still rooted there, and then eventually we agreed. I pushed them to move, and we finally all agreed the timing was right when I graduated law school in 2022. So right before I took the bar exam, I decided it's best to go now. So we came out here. I took it. We passed, and we're good. So once I still lived with my family a little bit for that time. I was lucky with that, and once I was able to branch out and get a job and actually pay for my own things. Uh, that's when I said I want to come out here to Fontana, mostly to the LA area because there's a good market there. But
Yeah.
I guess I didn't really know what I was signing up for in LA. So give me that.
Yeah, no,
Hopefully you guys can
I
give me that benefit of the doubt there. But yeah, so immediately I only spent like a year there, and then I came out here in late 2024, I believe, something like
okay,
that,
that's
early
cool.
2025. Yeah,
That's cool. I just wanted to kind of gauge how long you've been in the area.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
about two
mean,
years. Yeah.
it seems like you know, the IE it has a lot of like tight-knit communities, but it's always been growing and people have been
hmm
resistant to that change and people have been pushing for that change. So it's about finding a happy medium and
hmm
so yeah, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about your legal background because I had no idea that you're a lawyer, but or I shouldn't assume. But please tell us a little bit about that and what kind of work you've done, and maybe how that'll translate into becoming city treasurer.
Sure. So I'm currently a public defender in Riverside. Like I said, I've kind of devoted my life and career to helping those who may be underrepresented in our society and may not have the money or funds to really represent themselves adequately. And so, obviously, being a public defender, that's a public assistance program. So you don't pay a dollar for that for my representation. And I go to bat for all my clients. And it's been such an honor and such uh, it, uh, the word is you can't even put into words really how amazing it feels to help
Mm-hmm.
somebody. I don't even, it's almost selfish how good it feels, but it's just to help somebody
That's
who really is coming in with not really
mm,
knowing what's going on. A lot of the time people don't know why they're getting arrested. They kind of just at the
wow.
wrong place, wrong time. He really is that a lot of the
Yep.
time. And to just see how grateful people can be when they see somebody sticking up for them that doesn't really know them, doesn't really have to do it,
Yeah.
and the graciousness they know and that there's still people out there who care about other people. Uh, that gives me hope in this world,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
as
Me
bleak as
too, for
sometimes
sure.
things can be.
'Cause, yeah, especially I would imagine in those situations with some of your clients, like you said, they don't really know what's going on. They're getting caught up in the system. It's scary. Like whatever. Even being put in cuffs is a whole crazy thing I can't even imagine. But yeah, so that's crazy. But I can definitely see, those are I don't know why, but my first thought goes to the one TV show called The People versus OJ. With it was made by
Which was right there in LA, downtown
yeah, yeah, yeah.
LA.
So it was that telling that story of the OJ Simpson trial, and just it was just interesting to see firsthand how like man, these poor public defenders, these defense attorneys, whatever. I'm not really that educated in all of that. So please excuse me if I misname something. But yeah, just basically the people working on the side of the people who don't have that much money or any money sometimes. And yeah, it's so I respect that, a big respect. And I can definitely see that you will take that into working in government because that's just a kind of attitude that I don't know. You can't like yeah, we you can develop that attitude, but you really have to, either get firsthand experiences or I don't know, struggle through that um on your own, but sorry, I'm getting kind of off track here. Uh but anyways, a big respect for that.
Thank
So
you.
let's talk a little bit about like if you don't mind sharing a little bit of what the city treasurer would do. Like what's their duties and why is it important? Why is it an elected position?
Yes. So to be frank, the city treasurer doesn't really vote on anything specifically.
Mhm.
That's more for the city council and the mayor, but they still attend the meetings with them, and they're there for all the ribbon cutting and everything. So the city treasurer is pretty much managing the city funds. You're
Yeah,
given a certain amount of funds and grants, and you gotta and the city council will vote on how they want it to be used. But the city treasurer is going to manage and make sure those funds are being used the way they're voted on. And
I see.
what the city treasurer can do is promote investment of city funds in certain things, which is what I would want to do. And I can go out there and get committees going and getting engagement with the community to see where people want their money to be spent and want the city council to vote on. So that when you make your voice heard, you can feel like you know where your money's going. So
Yeah.
one way the city treasurer has currently been making it difficult for people is a very convoluted, complicated budget assessment that comes out every year.
Yeah.
Nobody's reading that. It's
Oh,
50 page, 100 page. Nobody's reading that. Okay, so I want to make it much more easier for people to understand. I'm thinking we can do quarterly uh, breakdowns, just a short PDF. And you learn this from being a lawyer, right? You want to present
yeah.
the case as easy it can be for the jury to understand. The DAs like to go and make these very long PowerPoints, and I don't like to do that. I like to break things
Okay.
down for them, and I feel like there's more success that way when somebody feels like you're just kind of being a straight shooter, right?
Yeah.
So, uh, that's what I want to bring to the city treasurer. I want to make it just kind of straight up. This is a breakdown, pretty much what you need to know of where things are going. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Well, let me know. I can let it be known. We can try to bring it up a public comment because the council meetings are at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so a lot of people can't show up to that. So I can try to take on that burden for people. Um, and and then you can vote. You use the democratic power, right? Now you know where your money's going, your tax dollars are going. I don't like that. I want to go vote this guy either in or out of city council or mayor, and that's your right. That's what
Yeah.
they don't want you to see. They
Yeah.
want you to think that the money is going in all these places, but I don't want to lie to you. I want that to be transparent so you know. They say the money is going to these roads and streets. Is it really? Do you feel like that? Because
Yeah.
we know there are certain parts of the city that those roads aren't getting fixed, right?
Yeah.
So making sure the public money is being invested equally across everywhere, not just one part, not the other. Making sure schools are getting all the same funding because there's a lot of schools in Fontana, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
know that they're not all getting the same funding. I have talked to kids who all have told me from different schools that, hey, our books are just we don't even want to read them because they're just so old.
Wow.
That's not right. That's not
Yeah.
right. When I talk to a kid and that's the first thing they say that their complaint is about school, that's the most important thing is the books,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's sad. So I want to invest in the youth. I want to invest in your streets and where you're at. I want to also. I may not have much control, and the surgery won't have much control in the warehouse situation we have in Fontana, which I'm sure a lot of people are aware of, especially if your houses are near those warehouses. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, I can still help you understand where that money is going into these warehouses because let's be honest, most of those warehouses are not being filled,
Yeah.
and people may not know.
So, there was this new project. It was kind of a partnership
Right,
between the City of Fontana and the San Bernardino County. This warehouse to help house people living on the streets, right?
right,
Um, I guess my question would be to them is like, well, what kind of like how is I know there's money allocated for this project, but I would want to know like what's the priority? Is it about getting like beds or some sort of transitional assistance? So that's what I would want to know from a treasure. Is that something that you would be able to do?
right. So I know what they are trying to put beds in
Oh,
there.
you don't have to answer. That was a hypothetical
Okay.
question, but
Yeah, well,
no, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but I'm not in there, so right, I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
But what the treasurer's job I think is most important is what you just alluded to and what I had also said is making sure things are transparent for
Yeah.
everybody,
Yeah.
right? And making sure that you know that hey, your money got spent on this
Mhm.
and this is what it's actually being used for. So your city taxpayer dollars got spent on this warehouse. Is it
Yeah.
actually bringing in jobs to Fontana, or is it really half empty and we're just filling it with people who are unhoused when we could have maybe allocated systems and homeless shelters and professionals that know how to deal with those things rather than just stuffing people into a warehouse. That doesn't seem very effective and short
Ethical.
term. And once they fill it up, where are these people going to go? They're going to kick them out. And then,
uh
so is that a solution? They did that in Riverside, and we've seen how Riverside's homeless population has skyrocketed. So,
yeah.
I don't think that's the solution. Um, and also, we should really put a moratorium on warehouses. We
Yeah.
should stop them until they're all filled up at least, or there's proper infrastructure. Also, because let's be honest, people don't know this. There's only really, I've counted about, if I'm correct, I think three main entrances off the freeway into
Uh-huh.
the off of the at least the 210, I think it is, or the 15, where you can
Yeah.
get big trucks to come in to these warehouses. So I'm
There's
sure
only
people have
three.
noticed that
Yeah.
there are huge hauler trucks being driven on side roads. Like
Yep.
I'll be driving on a side road with a huge truck turning and almost crushing me, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody feels safe, especially if you got kids in the car, and I don't feel safe. So that's not right. That's extra pollution in your community. We've got the mountain here that holds all the pollution too, so we get the worst of it. Um, it's just not right. So there has to be better ways to deal with this. And that's
Yeah.
where I think community outreach needs to be more efficient with the city treasurer, to have people promote them to come to these city council meetings. That's what I want to do. I want to promote that. So you come, you voice your opinion, and then that is because I was able to help make things more availably known and informative to people so they really realize that yes, your voice matters.
Yeah.
And also, we do know that these warehouses are getting breaks with their um, property taxes. That's why Amazon and that's why Walmart and that's why these big corporations are coming to Fontana. Why are they not going to
Yeah.
other cities that they could go to,
Yeah.
right? They're coming to Fontana because they are getting deals from the people who are currently in office, and they're getting cut deals that you, the homeowners or property owners or renters, are getting your taxes and
Just
your rent pushed up
raised up.
because of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Fontana, like we had spoken earlier about, what do I love about it? It's a place where we can still kind of see the American dream somewhat
Yep.
about right owning a house, raising a family, going, having kids go to school, having a job, all that, and that's dissipating. And where are people going to go after that? Really, everybody's going to go out to the
They're
desert now?
yeah, we're gonna go
No.
to Yucaipa, we're gonna go
Yeah,
to
everybody's going to move to like
Barstow.
Arizona or right, and
Arizona,
we
yeah.
don't
I
want to
mean,
come.
how
Yeah,
many
and
like I grew up here in Southern California, right?
yeah,
And the amount of people that I've either went to high school with or people my neighbors, it blows my mind how many people have just transplanted to either to Arizona
hmm
or New Mexico, Nevada, excuse me, Nevada, big one too, because
yes,
like I've never been a lake or a river person, but I know a lot of people go out to the lake and river out there, and so that might be better for them because they're closer to that. But still, it sucks. If you grew up in Fontana, a lot of people, maybe they grew up in LA, moved out to
right,
that's what my parents did. That's what I
right,
know a lot of people did. I mean, that's what you did, kinda.
yeah,
So it's like, yeah, the American dream was alive maybe in the like 1920s in Los Angeles, and then just slowly we've all had to move out east,
yep,
and yeah, it sucks.
yep.
So
And we need to stop that, and it stops here in Fontana, and
y-
that's what I want to help make sure
yeah,
that
yeah,
because also Fontana, like you said, it has a lot of people who are born and raised here. Like
yep,
I don't think you can say that about LA a lot of the time. People
no,
are moving
yeah,
around LA a lot. A lot of it's transplants, a lot. But Fontana is a place people want to stay and grow a family and live for a long time until they're old.
yeah,
You shouldn't that should not change. That is what the American dream is. And if
yeah,
we lose that, what do we have anymore? So that's what I'm
exactly.
fighting for.
Sweet, sweet. Like I said, big respect for that. Big respect for the entire Fontana United slate. You guys are
Yes.
really out there doing the work, and I think results are coming. Results are
Yeah.
coming for sure.
Exactly. Cited for mayor, Joe Alvarez for clerk,
Yeah,
Anuvia for District 1, and we have everybody with District 4 as well.
yeah,
We got a whole slate going.
yeah.
So, this is a train that's rolling, and
This
it,
is
it
the
doesn't need to stop
train.
at this
Yeah,
election. This is
yeah.
gonna
It
be,
does not, and I'm really excited to see what you guys got going on, especially if one or more of you guys end up in office, right? So that leads me into kind of my next question, which you already kind of answered, but I'm a big fan of reaching out to people and letting them know what you're doing, right? Because it seems like maybe the city of Fontana, the council members and the mayor go out and say what they're doing, but I would really like to have that, a third party come in and say, well, actually, well, not to be a well, actually person, but well, actually, the money is being spent like this and like that. And, this council member is, saying that they're doing so good for their district. But so that's what I would want from you, but
That's
a little
exactly it.
a little bit more for maybe people who don't understand. What would you bring to the office of treasurer that would really make a difference for the people of Fontana?
Yes. So the point of why I'm running is mainly to differentiate from what's going on now, right? I don't think that what's currently happening is the right, but I want more I want more city funding at its as really at its crux. I mean, they say that we have about 200 million in grants or so. I don't
Mhm.
think people are really seeing that money, and I don't think it is as much as they say it is.
Mhm.
That's probably not accurate. There's probably less than that, and it's being used for something else because then why we wouldn't really have that many I think 200 million would solve a lot of problems. Let's just be
Yeah,
honest with that,
yeah.
right? So there's something fishy about that. Second of all, like I said, well, I already talked about increasing transparency, so I'll say something else. I want to reduce the unnecessary financial risks that people may be experiencing in Fontana, right?
Mm.
So I want you to make sure that your investments
Mhm.
in land here are actually coming through and your taxes are being spent the way you want them to. So like I was talking about property taxes, right?
Yeah.
It's increasing a lot every year. I want to try to reduce that burden by promoting, better investments, better getting more money from these warehouses. If they're already built,
Yeah.
let's get them to pay more. Okay? Let's give
Yeah.
them incentives to pay more into their community, right? Not just say we're hiring people and then 10% of them are actually Fontana residents that
Wow.
working there.
Wow.
Also,
Yeah.
I don't know if people know this, about 60% of the funds are going to police and to public works, which, okay, fine, but you're telling me they're understaffed by 20. I think we went to one of the meetings, they said one of the areas they're understaffed by 20 officers, and you're getting
Wow.
60% of funding?
Wow. Wow.
No,
I don't understand that,
what
but
is going on? So the funds
yeah.
aren't being used efficiently, obviously.
Yeah.
Whatever their reasons are, maybe they were looking for the right candidates. I've heard, or they want to bring in the right cadets or whatever.
Yeah.
It's you can't tell me that safety is the number one priority and that we need 60% of funding when you are understaffed.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
it. Then we should be taking some of that money and putting it somewhere else. Not, uh, maybe we can invest in schools a little bit more. We can put some more school safety in schools. You know, we can put more into community outreach with the homeless, which I know the
Mhm.
police are trying to do, and I've spoken with them, and I appreciate that. But as a public
Yeah.
defender, I deal with homeless people almost all the time who coming in because of drugs or whatever, and they're getting arrested and sitting in jail. And these guys can't really, these aren't guys that should be taking up jail. And,
No.
so we
Yeah.
need to find better outreach programs. And I would love to try to start that and work with CityLink maybe more and these kind of programs. So, that's something that I think as city treasurer I can try to promote. We can try to promote more ribbon cutting for like these kind of initiatives,
Yeah.
and looking where we can just make more savings. Right? Obviously, that's I think a big part of the city treasurer's job is
Yeah.
reviewing the budget and advising the council, hey, this is where we can make some savings. That would be one part of my job, right? And so I would love to hear from the community about, and I'm serious. I'm gonna have these meetings, like, you know, we're going to talk about where do you think that we should be saving? Where do you think your money should be going? And we can talk about this because maybe there's areas that don't stick out as much that but stick out to you, and that's what matters. Then we can have that discussion, and I will try to have the council's ear in that. Um, and then improving the financial system, right? Is it up to date?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Are
a
we
very
having
good
the most
point.
efficient system, right? Or are we not? So that's something that, because I'm not in there, I don't know all about, but
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
something that I'd want to look into. I'd want to do a lot of audits, make sure that,
Mhm.
you know, we're
Yeah.
doing things the right way and money is
Audits
not
are
going
like
in anywhere sideways, which,
yep, yep,
you know,
yep.
You never know. And then planning for the long term, right? What is our long-term goal for the city? And I think we can all agree it's good to bring more housing in,
Mm-hmm.
but uh, not just to bring businesses, like big businesses in, right?
Yeah.
Because that's just gonna overcrowd and overpollute the city, and it's gonna just become like LA, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
needs to be planned out. It needs to be specific, and it needs to be more. We should try to promote more family businesses coming in, not in and outs and big grocery chains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We need something that's a little bit more promoting the small businesses, right? And that's what I want to focus on is small businesses, specifically immigrant-owned small businesses, because I know that they have been feeling left out. I know
Mm-hmm.
that the current administration has been also very harsh on the vendors, and I
Yeah.
don't think that's right. Like a son of
Yeah.
an immigrant family whose, grandfather had a business in a socialist country and it got taken away from him, right?
Yep.
And that
Yeah.
I
That's
don't believe government should be telling people what to do, whether you're a citizen or not. You
yeah.
live in this country, you are under the jurisdiction of this country. It's just like the laws. You have to follow the laws in this country, right? Well, then
Yep.
they have to treat you like you live in this country and not just that you're not a citizen, so you can't make a living.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't make sense
The
to
the
me.
whole street cart vendor
Exactly.
debacle that happened in Fontana a while ago, that that I don't know, feels like a missed opportunity. I mean, other than the like racial undertones and, just the like the current climate around Latino immigrants aside, it's like here we have people out there trying to, work for themselves, pull themselves up by their bootstraps, make money wherever they can, however they can. Why, as one, as a person who is, for business, and two, a person who's for the people of Fontana, why would you limit that amount of like small business activity that was happening? Not only like it was to me, it's just keeping 100% keeping those Fontana dollars in Fontana,
Hmm.
So yeah, that's just my disappointment with Mayor Warren and her going after the cart or the vendors, the street vendors, sorry. So yeah, would the Office of Treasurer have any? I keep calling it the Office of Treasurer or just
It is technically
the
an office because you're running,
okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, would you have anything to do with like, permitting or in terms of like how much those permits would cost? I'm trying to think of like, how if there's any way that you could promote that small business to really grow in Fontana.
So, to be honest, I don't believe I would have anything to do
Yeah.
with permitting. I think that's mostly a council issue. Um, but the treasurer could have an indirect connection to permitting involving fees, taxes, deposits, or other payment methods to the city. But that usually doesn't come. I can't approve or deny permits. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have that power, to be frank. But like I said, I can be in the ear of the council. I'll be sitting next to them all the time. And if you come with your complaints or yeah, you want to know how to apply for permits, I want to also maybe create an outreach program to immigrant communities where they can learn how to do the process so that they can do it and avoid any argument that they're not doing it the legal way, I guess, like the
Yeah.
permitting way. I don't know what you would even call it, right? Whatever
Yeah,
the
they use
excuse
that
is.
argument against immigrants a lot, they got to do
It's
things the
always
right way.
right. Yeah, exactly.
It's a
So
double
it's like
standard.
whatever they want to call it, but making sure that if that is the way you have to do it, like I guess, then making an education program for that so people can know how to do it. Because I think it's not that people don't want to do it, right? I think it's just most of the time they don't know how to do it. They don't have the time, or it's probably expensive, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
So
and if
maybe we
you're
can
trying to
promote.
focus on doing your business, like, why would you want yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's so,
But
you know, um, more than anything, I'm going to be an advocate. I'm going to be an advocate for the youth, the immigrant community, and reducing pollution. Those are my three big things. And whether the city treasurer has a lot of power and all of that, um, I'm still there. You got to remember, I'm still there sitting next to the council at all their meetings.
Yeah.
You're still there at the ribbon cutting events. I'm there with them. So we're gonna get to know each other pretty well. So, you
Yeah.
know, if you want somebody that you feel like maybe the council isn't representing you as well as you like to, and you want somebody who can get in the ear of the council, that's what I would be for you.
Nice, nice. Have you been going out there and campaigning? How's it been on the trail? Like how what are the people that like what are some common issues people are coming up to you with, or even if they are aware of the office of the treasurer?
Yeah, and I understand it's a down ballot vote, and we get that. But the previous incumbent isn't running, and she was there for over 20 years, and her father was there before over 20 years, so we need a fresh face.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. So, and I've met her. She's, we're very friendly with each other, so she's, hopefully we can maybe try to figure out what has been working and not working in the past and work on that, and that could be a great thing to learn from, right?
Mhm.
But we have been campaigning. We've been campaigning a long time, actually. I've been doing the campaign since early this year, since around
Nice.
February. Um, Jaws has been campaigning for a year,
Yeah.
so we've been in this. A
Yeah.
lot of these guys are just starting their, you'll
There.
see the signs around the city and stuff. I mean, I'll be frank, they're just putting signs up. I
Yeah, that's
don't
it.
see them out there. I think they're going to start canvassing this weekend. We've been canvassing for, like I said,
Like
months.
2 months now.
More than
Like
that, I think three,
yeah,
four
I
months.
was
Yeah, we've been doing
yeah.
this. We've been in this. We've been in this. All right. We've been meeting in the streets. We're doing a park tour
Yep.
every Friday and Saturday. We're going out there. We're meeting people where they're at. We're doing a whole park tour. I think there's about 52, if I'm give or take, parks in
Yeah.
Fontana. We're doing about 47 or something of them. So
Wow,
we're going
nice.
around. We're actually meeting people where they're at. We're trying to get to know you and what your concerns are, and we're knocking on doors. We're going to do a huge event this weekend. We're going to have a lot of people canvassing. We're doing, like I said, every Friday and Saturday we're doing this. We're even doing it on some Tuesdays. We're going to start probably doing it almost every day now as Labor Day comes around.
Yep.
So we're there. We're there. We're
Yeah.
on the streets. This is a grassroots campaign. This
Yes.
is
I can
grassroots.
definitely tell that.
So
You
we're
know,
not PAC endorsed or anything like that. We are straight from the streets.
straight from the
I'm proud
streets.
of that.
Heck
I'm proud
yeah.
of that.
No,
We are
yeah. I'm
we're
a big
there.
person. I've been telling everyone I can tell that we are going to have a replay of 2016.
Yes.
2016 was the big anti-establishment presidential election, and even though the candidate that maybe was portrayed as anti-establishment wasn't really anti-establishment, so now 2026 is 2016 Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. Here we go again. I'm sorry. So
Exactly.
so it's like, okay, we definitely need to learn from our mistakes.
Hmm.
Definitely learn from our our not be too cocky.
Hmm.
But I think like I said, big respect for the whole Fontana United slate.
Thank
I've
you.
watching you guys like crazy. I just am so in awe of the momentum that y'all have been building, especially with Jaws.
Yeah.
I know she's at
She's
the top,
amazing.
and I want to give her her due respect, but I also want to, you
Yeah.
guys, as I've been getting to know each individual of the like, all I have left now is Nubia to meet and get her on the
Oh,
stream. So, but she
she's
seems great too.
and she's so she knows so many people, so well connected. I mean, yeah, you'll learn a lot from her for sure.
Yeah. So, I was kind of stuck in my mind this one thing that Jaws told me that, I told her, I was like, "You're an outsider." And she's like, "No, no, no. I'm an insider for the people." And I'm like, "You're an outsider of the establishment, but insider for the people." I love that. And I feel
Yeah.
like you're carrying that same energy.
Yes,
So
well, thank you.
before
That's why
bef-
me and Jaws right away we connected. We I messaged her. I was like, I want to be part of this when I learned about it, and ever since then it's just been such an amazing ride. I met so many beautiful people, and that's what it's all about. It's about the people.
people,
It's about the
yeah,
connections you make. it's about, you know, just that it's not about the politics. It
No.
really isn't. It's
Yeah.
about really just seeing people put their faith in you.
Yep.
And it's such an honor, and it's just it's amazing thing. It's such a human thing, and I love it because it's not about the money.
Yes.
You
And
know,
it
it's not
should
like the
never have been about
incumbents
the
who it's
money.
about the money, or they're using it as a stepping stone or what. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I know the guy I'm running against, Armendariz, he's got the name,
He's
right?
got the
His
name.
brother is the city county supervisor, excuse
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, but you know, that's where you have to think, are they really in there for your interests, or are they just really using
I know. Yeah. It's
motives, right?
I want to give
I
them the
have no
benefit of
other
the
motive.
doubt.
Yeah, I have nothing to really gain from this, right?
Yeah.
So you
So,
have to sometimes weigh that when you're, you know, when you want what's best for you. Is there somebody in there for your interests, or is there some other kind of interest there? And you have to really analyze that when you vote, and it's important. And that's why I think what we're doing here is, and the grassroots of it kind of speaks for itself, you know?
it really does. It really does. You don't even need someone like me to call it grassroots. It'll be
Right.
identified as grassroots, you know.
Exactly.
Wh- So,
We're not a dynasty running for right,
nope.
like they are with the District 1 and like with the treasurer and like, you know, and Aquanet has been there forever, you know.
Yep.
No, we're coming straight to you from the same place you came from when you think about it,
Yep.
especially Jaws.
Yep.
You know, is she Jaws, Nubia, they've been here, right?
Yeah.
You know, Joe Alvarez has also been here a while. He's been in this area.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
all coming, you know, and Ben Vasquez, you know, we're all he's been a community supporter and advocating, going to Aquanetta and the council meetings for years since he was in high
Yeah.
school here in Fontana.
Yeah.
So can you say the same about the current incumbents or the people who are in this race?
Yeah.
Do your research.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can. And that's where you know, where our authenticity comes in,
Yep.
right?
And you
And I'm
know,
very
that's
proud of
what
it.
I'm about,
Big
authenticity.
that's why when I heard that you wanted to do this interview, I heard so much about, you know, all of that, and I was like, this is exactly what you are like what we stand for. So
Sweet.
I'm
I'm
really, really
honored.
thankful. Yes, no, I'm honored.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kamal. Any final words? Anything you wanted me to ask you about that I didn't? You want to bring up right now? The mic is yours.
I just I want everybody to know that you know, this is we bring up 2016 a lot as one of the most consequential elections in the history of this country, not just on the
Mm-hmm.
local level, but all across. And I
Yeah.
think that's accurate because a lot of things kind of rolled after that, took place
Yeah.
after that,
Yeah.
um, to set up where we are now, 10 years later. And and it was very consequential also for me. It's what made me really want to start running for politics when I saw what happened with
Yeah.
Donald Trump. And that's when I ran my first election, even though I was over in Massachusetts. I ran for city council over there. We call them city selectmen. And I was 23 years old, you know, I just
Wow.
fresh out of college. Uh, you know, you could call me naive or whatever. But I really saw the youth not really getting representation. And I was a youth really back then, and it bothered me a lot because we should be the next generation. You are the next, you are what's important. You are the future of this country. And so I'm speaking directly to the youth that when you vote, you make a difference. You're going to make the difference in this election. The older folks, they've kind of usually got their ways set. They know how they're the 65 and older, they know how they're going to vote. And they're the
Yeah.
ones that mostly will vote for the current incumbents. But if the youth and the people who are registered and don't usually vote come out and vote,
Yep.
we have the majority.
Yeah.
We have the majority.
Yeah.
So put your voice to work, what the democracy, the only thing we have left in this democracy, really, that Donald Trump can't take away from us, or any of these MAGA people can, is your vote, your
Yeah.
right to vote.
Yep.
And if you use that, you at least can say at the end of the day, even if we can't make it to the cross the finish line, you can say you did your duty.
Yep.
And if you can do more, come out and volunteer with us. We're out at these parks. Check out our Instagram. Check
Heck
out our
yeah.
website, kamalforfontana.com. Kamal for Fontana Treasurer is my Instagram. You can come, you can donate, even 10, 15 bucks goes a long way. Or just come out. We do backpack events. We give free backpacks out to kids. We're literally here for
Yep.
the community. So come out, be part of this. Come help knock on doors or come get some coffee. We have some pan dulces, if I'm saying that correctly. Pan
Pan dulce, you got it.
on
It's
those
okay.
days. Okay, so I'm learning. I'm learning.
You got it. You
Um,
got it.
and then yeah, so it's also been amazing learning about the Latin culture through all of this.
Oh
It's such
yeah.
a amazing culture, and so family oriented and humbling. And even though I come from Middle Eastern background, I think we have a lot in common. I think that the Middle
100%.
Eastern and Hispanic cultures have a lot in common. And so I'm very honored if you would vote. I'm very honored for your vote, and I will not let you down. And thank you so much for your time, and it's been a pleasure.
No, thank you, Camille Mahmoud, right? Or did I get it right?
Kamal,
Kamal. Sorry, I called you
Kamal
Camille. I'm
Namou,
sorry. Kamal
Kamal Namou. No,
Mahmoud.
you're good.
Thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited for you. I wish you the best in your campaign, honestly. And I
Thank
hope
you.
to have you on again, have you back on
Definitely.
again. Maybe,
Let's do
we
it.
could talk a bit more casual or, give us an update
Sure.
on your campaign. So yeah,
Let's do
thank you
it,
so
please.
much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Angelina.
All right. Peace out, Kamal. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye now.
Whoops, whoops. Let me end this conversation. Bro, I'm being such a boomer with the here we go. There's the end button. There we go. Okay, wow. What a great conversation. I was not expecting him to be so so passionate, right? Um I like I said, I hadn't really known anything about him before. But yeah, I met him briefly the other day at Jaws's comedy show slash fundraiser. And yeah, homie was just I think he was there with I should have asked him if it was his child, but he had a stroller and it's just like, man, really another family person. Like I this reminds me of Joe Alvarez, who's running for Fontana clerk. We need to get him back on for an interview to of Fontana clerk. But yeah, it's just like these people, specifically like men, right, who are just trying to do what they can to provide for their families. And it's absolutely crazy how hard it is, Here, a working professional, a literal lawyer, right? Unable, oh, I'm not going to say he wasn't able to afford stuff, but he wants more for his community and he sees that there is a lot more for the community. It's just not being it's not being prioritized, I think is the answer. And that's really sad that that this is happening in this community, but you know, we're doing what we can. Clearly they're doing what they can. Fontana is out there. Let me go to the little Fontana slate. There we go. Yeah, they're out there like just here.
Namou, your future treasurer right here. And I'm here canvassing every weekend, trying to get the word out and meet you where you're at. If you want to know more about me, I'm mostly going to represent you in where it matters most. So that's divesting from warehouses, making sure that your funds are going to the appropriate spaces, that is to the youth and to our small businesses and immigrant communities.
Good, that's awesome.
And also making things more transparent and clear for you so you know where the council is voting on your money and where it's going for your tax dollars.
So yeah, that was pretty much what he said. on stream right now, and big respect for that. It's crazy stuff. Uh, but okay. Let me go use the restroom real quick, and then we will get into our next topics for the day. Let me just like pull up a video here. Here, let's watch a Hassan video briefly. Do we want to watch? Here you go. Let's watch this.
Let's get to the U.S. sanctions on Iran.
Okay, because we need to be a little bit more aware of the economy. Vox Populi 55. Thank you for writing in chat. Let's go, Kamal. I'm sure he appreciates that. Damn, I feel like I feel so bad I got his name wrong at the end there, but that's okay. It's okay. Accidents happen. All right, let me go use the restroom, grab some water and stuff, and then we will continue with our coverage. We're going to be going into the FLIPR. I know that's what it sounds so weird, but that's what it's called. It's called FLIPR.
Show military action has failed. This is the nuclear motherlode of all sanctions. Scott Bessent is presenting it as such. They're calling it the economic D-Day. He said a whole bunch of nothing. I know. Of course he said a whole bunch of nothing, because he has nothing. Because we have nothing. That's just the reality. We have nothing.
Every country has a defined timeline to shut down activities we have identified. If they do not take action, we will do so unilaterally through Treasury authorities. For example, every branch of Bank Melee must be shuttered and dark. And let me be clear, any entity that facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the U.S. dollar system. The clock just started ticking. The new sectoral sanctions determinations issued.
The sanctions have to be full spectrum. You have to hit China and Russia. I covered this last week when they signaled that they were going to do the economic D-Day and mentioned that this would most likely not happen for two reasons. One, because you can't really sanction China without crippling your own economy. We know this already because Donald Trump tried it with the tariffs. The Liberation Day tariffs campaign failed. Part of that was hitting China with the maximalist tariffs and then backing away from it quietly after months and months of instability. Now, even in this reveal, you'll hear Bessent say something along the lines of secondary sanctions are coming. We're promising that secondary sanctions are coming. But then he also says, I hope I don't have to do it. He says, why would I want to blow up the global financial system? So they also recognize that it's not going to happen. So it's mostly just taking a threatening posture against a country that already has received these sorts of threats and has not backed away from them. I think it's a foolhardy endeavor, and I don't even know who the target audience is for this. I don't think it's Xi Jinping. This is what they did basically with Cuba. Yes, but you can't do it with Iran because Iran is an energy provider. And not only is Iran an energy provider, Iran controls a global choke point for 20% of the global energy supply. We can do this to weaker countries that we've weakened over multiple decades. But we can't do this to a country that is currently militarily controlling the Strait of Hormuz. It is in China's best interest to end the chaos in the Gulf. It's in China's best interest, considering that they get their oil and gas needs. They have their oil and gas needs met by the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, as well as Iran. But ultimately, they can't do this to China. Secondary sanctions would be to hit Iran's biggest trading partners: Pakistan, Azerbaijan, Turkey to a certain degree, China, and Russia. Russia has already been hit with the mother of all sanctions, so I don't know how much more space there is there for Russian sanctions. And you can't do this to China because China is the global manufacturing hub of the entire planet, and also on top of that has additional leverage now because it's been engaging in price stability by artificially cutting down its imports of oil in an effort to make sure that the rest of the Asian continent, the rest of the Asia Pacific region, is not experiencing tremendous shortages and collapsing their energy grid. I don't foresee China dropping Iran for no reason here, especially at a time when Iran behaving in an erratic manner would worsen the crisis overall. And China's response has been pretty unbowed. They've said, we will not abide by these sanctions. America tried testing this against China already because China was still purchasing Iranian oil throughout the conflict. And the American side came out and said, we're going to apply sanctions to Chinese companies and Chinese banks. They're processing these oil shipments. And China said, no, you're not. Today, the U.S. announced Operation Economic Outcast, comprehensive economic pressure campaign against Iran and sanctioned 60 entities. 3 months ago, which is what I was talking about, the U.S. announced Operation Economic Fury, a new, more comprehensive economic pressure campaign against Iran and sanctioned 50 entities. So they already did this 3 months ago, and it went nowhere, and they're doing it again. I don't even know why they're doing it at this point. The same Besant who deluded himself into thinking back in April 2025 that all countries would join the U.S. in a grand economic encirclement of China, only to fold a few weeks later because no one joined. Now he's recycling the same script against Iran, and it's even more deluded because it requires the cooperation of China, the very country he tried and failed to isolate last year, and China is obviously refusing. So yeah, it makes no sense. It makes no sense. Why should anybody, at a time when America's global standing is in tatters, at a time when America's hegemonic superpower position is being threatened by its own missteps, by the way, by no one else. I guess maybe you could say Iran retaliated and won, and that obviously played a major role in destroying American force projection capabilities, destroying the confidence that people have in America as the world stabilizer, as the hegemonic superpower. Having said all of that, it is clear now, more than it was last year, more than it was in April 2025, more than it was 3 months ago, there is no way around this, that America has to play ball with China, and America has to concede to Iran. Sina Tusi from CI Policy says, will the U.S. get China on board with intensifying Iran's economic strangulation? Beijing is moving the other way after ordering firms not to comply with U.S. sanctions on Chinese buyers of Iranian oil. This was 3 months ago when they tried to test out the exact same thing. Its top court penalized a Singaporean firm for complying with U.S. sanctions. China's top court highlights first anti-foreign sanctions law ruling amid global tensions. A court judgment unveiled last month showed the Shanghai court ruled against the Singaporean firm in February, ordering it to pay more than 4.99 million yuan in damage plus interest, and holding that it could not use a foreign country's discriminatory restrictions as a defense under Article 12 of China's anti-foreign sanctions law. Esfandyar Batmanglij says, in today's press conference, Secretary Scott Bessent took no time to explain how ordinary Iranians would be protected from undue harm during his economic D-Day. Instead, his speech made it clear that the Iranian people are the targets of this new assault. The 5 sectors identified here are not lifelines for the Iranian state. They are lifelines for the Iranian people. Digital assets and gold are how ordinary Iranians protect their savings from inflation. Technology keeps Iranians connected to the world. Aviation keeps Iranian families connected with loved ones across borders. Shipping is how essential goods, including food and medicine, reach Iran. The Treasury Department has even rescinded general licenses covering academic and sports exchanges between the U.S. and Iran. These measures do not isolate the Iranian regime, which has hunkered down for years. They isolate the Iranian people. The Trump administration has no qualms about ordinary Iranians becoming targets in their economic war, just as they had no qualms about killing civilians in their military operations. But we knew that already.
Huge number of threats there by the Americans. Clearly, this administration, it has run out of patience, is well aware.
I mean, it's funny that even Western media like Sky News is covering this as like a recognition of American defeat. The title of this is Analysis: U.S. Sanctions on Iran Show Military Action Has Failed. These are some of our most important allies and their major arms of propaganda. It's unbelievably desperate, and of course, it's unbelievably cruel. Along with the new initiative and a bunch of new sanctions listing, U.S. is suspending existing GLs, permitting academic exchanges and professional amateur sports activities. They're trying to punish the regular Iranian society as aggressively as they possibly can because they've lost the war.
There were some moments that stuck out to me. He said that any enemy who facilitates money laundering on behalf of Iran will be removed from the U.S.
By the way, money laundering is just normal trade relations with two foreign countries. Two foreign countries that we should have no connection to, that we have no say over. Conducting regular trade is now a major issue, a major
system, and that countries will have a finite timeline to shut down activities identified by the Treasury. He hasn't gone into any specifics there, but it's clear, I think, that the Americans are really, truly running out of patience with Iran. They want to bring the country back to the negotiating table, and in order to do that, they are now applying what they say is economic D-Day for the Iranians. It's worth saying that Mohammad Ghalibaf, who is the Speaker of the Iranian Parliament, a key figure within the administration, one of the most vocal figures in terms of putting out reaction to whatever the Americans might do. He, in the last hour, has put on social media, Americans know that no one buys their bombast. The United States is not in an economic position to further restrict its relations with other countries. Iran's trading partners, both in the media and through messages sent to us, have made it clear that they don't take these statements into account anywhere. So that is the first reaction we've had from part of the Iranian regime to this latest attempt by the Americans to pull them into line.
Yeah, it's, Mark, just a quick word on Canada, because look, Canadians may have been watching that from Scott Besson, thinking, with friends like them, who needs enemies, given the ongoing enmity between them over.
Yeah, it's additionally stupid to reveal this sanctions package and claim that you're going to apply secondary sanctions to countries that are doing normal trade with Iran in any way, shape, or form. A couple days after you also supposedly had a trade deal with Canada that fell apart because of the insane demands that you made in the last hour towards Canada, to which then turned into another tariff war with Canada, another one of our major trade partners. Between Canada, Mexico, and China, that's like 70% of American trade. Okay, it's insane. Like 30% of that comes directly from China, and a large chunk of that, a large chunk of the rest of our trade comes from Canada and Mexico. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense. I just don't know where this goes. Okay, I don't know. I don't understand what the administration is trying to do with this. Normally, I would scratch the surface and like identify some kind of logical through line behind the initiatives, but at this point, just kind of it just unironically comes across as like Donald Trump wildly posturing in this belligerent manner, or directly trying to bankrupt the country, directly trying to destroy America. I don't know. Canada's threatening to cut electricity and minerals to the U.S. This is from the Associated Press. Canada threatens to cut off all electricity and critical minerals to the U.S., including high-grade nickel and uranium, if the Canada-U.S. trade war worsens, per the AP. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says, "I'll cut him off. You won't get a grain of sand out of Ontario's," adding, "What would they do without the high-grade nickel?" Ontario Premier Doug Ford says everything's on the table, including power to 1.5 million American homes and high-grade nickel and uranium, after Trump announced 50% tariffs on Canadian autos, parts, and steel starting next year, and 50% tariffs on $20 billion worth of Canadian goods Saturday. Could you have imagined a decade ago? Well, I guess a decade ago Trump came into power, but like, yeah, a decade ago, before Trump came into power, that we would one day talk about, you know, a ongoing tariff war with Canada. I know the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, is just posturing, but could you ever imagine that a moment necessary of this kind of posture would ever come about? I certainly can't. It's unimaginable. I don't think they're going to do it, but I'm just saying, like, the very fact that this conversation is taking place is completely insane. We're desperately trying to find victory anywhere we possibly can, and in that moment of belligerence, destroying what remains of our standing in the globe. It's ridiculous. Today, VP Vance said Canada and China are the two worst countries on trade policy. That's an opinion, his right. But because Vance specifically complained about Canada's super high dairy tariffs, which again only kick in above a quota, here are some interesting World Trade Organization data via Trevor Tomby. 96.7% of U.S. agricultural exports to Canada are duty-free, compared to 4.5% of U.S. agricultural exports to China. The sheer number of lies from President Trump about Canada growing again today is remarkable. Just some fact checks from the last 18 months. Daniel Dale, the number one fact checker from Trump 1, coming back. Trump falsely said today that Canada's unemployment rate is 10% and rapidly rising, though it is 6.4% under the Canadian method that adds about a percentage point and has been declining for 3 months. Trump falsely said today that Canada does 95% of its business with the U.S., though 72% of Canadian exports went to the U.S. last year. Trump falsely said today that high Canadian agricultural tariffs have caused the entire U.S. trade deficit with Canada, though that deficit is overwhelmingly caused by U.S. imports of cheap Canadian crude. And though something like 97% of U.S. agricultural exports to Canada are tariff-free. Like, it's upside down. Everything he's saying about Canada is the exact opposite. Everything he says about everything is the exact opposite of the truth. At this point, it sometimes feels like Donald Trump is just simply lying because he's incapable of saying things that are truthful. Trump has falsely claimed Canada generally doesn't take U.S. agricultural exports, though Canada is the world's second biggest buyer of those exports. Trump has falsely said that the Canadian public likes the idea of becoming the 51st state, which the Canadian public overwhelmingly opposes. Trump has falsely said Canada is one of the world's highest tariff countries, though it is actually low in World Trade Organization rankings. Trump has falsely said Canada essentially doesn't have a military, though its military has fought with the U.S. in multiple wars and its force size ranks in upper half of NATO. Trump has falsely said Canada hiked its dairy tariffs during the Biden administration, though they hadn't changed since Trump's first presidency. Trump has falsely said the U.S. trade deficit with Canada is $200 billion, though it is nowhere close. Trump has falsely said Canada prohibits U.S. banks, though it doesn't, and though more than a dozen U.S. banks were operating in Canada at the time he spoke. Trump has falsely said Canada is constantly surrounded by Chinese and Russian ships, though that is fiction. Trump has falsely said then outgoing Prime Minister Trudeau was using their trade battle to run again for Prime Minister, though Trudeau obviously wasn't running. He literally dropped out. Everything he's saying is a complete lie. Okay. Trump on Doug Ford. Trump says lots of bluster from Doug Ford, who was the premier of the Canadian province of Ontario, but who is better known for the less charismatic, intelligent, overall unimpressive brother of the late great Rob Ford. Oh my God. He hit the Rob Ford is much better than you line, which is, I mean, I guess he's not wrong. God, I hope that our Canadian comrades are standing strong in opposition to the American menace. I apologize on behalf of Americans. I apologize on behalf of the American government. I'm sorry that this is happening. Hopefully, we will be able to overcome these problems with the current administration and change the American trajectory for the better. We're working on it, even though there's a tremendous amount of resistance from our own elected representatives.
Damn. All right. Let's get into Mr. Nathaniel Silver. No, Nate Silver. Yeah, I kind of stumbled across this last night. Of course, y'all know Nate Silver has been doing these forecasting models forever. I was trying to see if there was like any explanation of his newest one, but then I just came across this picture and oh my God, he has the worst comb over. The worst comb over. No wonder he wears baseball caps in all his new shit. Because he has the worst comb over ever.
We want to get more on where the race stands right now.
Here, let's listen. This is ABC talking about what they eventually bought 538 ABC.
From the forecasting guru, Nate Silver of 538. Nate,
oh
thanks
my
for
God,
coming
look
in.
at that comb over, brother. Look at that. He's taking hair from parts that barely have hair. Sorry, you know my not fascination. It is not a fascination. It is an outrage. Like, it is hate watching men try to cover up their baldness by either getting the worst hair transplants, by doing the worst comb overs, or like just completely lying that they're not bald. Anyways, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy, this hair.
So you made your bones in 2008,
It's
2012.
so
You had
bad.
the election for Barack Obama. Like everyone else, you missed Donald Trump in the primary. So where does your forecast?
Large or small lead for Clinton in some ways, whereas Obama actually had a bigger lead electorally than you'd think. The other thing, too, is that we see lots of polls that show numbers like Clinton 44%, Trump 40%.
Okay.
If you only have
Anyways,
44%,
like I said, this is a numbers broadcast. We talked about money. Now we're going to talk about electoral data. So yeah, let me let's get the old vocal cords ready. Let's do some reading. All right. So from the Silver Bulletin, which is Nate Silver's Substack, this is published August 11th, 2026. In the Silver Bulletin /538 tradition, we've always given names to our sports models. They got the Pele and the Elway. I don't even know what we are not a sports broadcast right now. But never for our election forecast. I suppose we'd like to think that our presidential model is renowned enough at this point it doesn't necessarily need any further identifiers. But we've decided we do need a name for what we informally call our midterms model. That's because our midterms model is actually a misnomer. The model forecasts both congressional and gubernatorial races, but it's trained on both midterm years like 2022 and years where those races coincide with presidential elections. House, Senate, and gubernatorial model is a mouthful. However, so we're now calling the model FLIPR instead, and there's a freaking dolphin emoji right next to it. In line with our tradition of silly backronyms, FLIPR stands for Forecast with Leading Indicators, Polls, and Expert Ratings. We like this name because it's sort of a triple entendre. The principal goal of these elections is flipping individual seats and ultimately the House and the Senate, like them completely. FLIPR is a hat tip to the inherently probabilistic nature of the forecast. We run 40,000, or let me repeat that again, 40,000 simulations every time the model is updated. What does that mean? I have no idea, brother. I have no idea. I am just imagining like these simulations being run, but it's like for natural disasters, you know? I'm picturing they're like, yep, we got the big flood is happening, and here is the different ways that it's gonna just the different destruction paths it's gonna go along. There's 40,000 different ways that, you know, this world-ending event can happen. There's 40,000 ways that this asteroid can hit the Earth, and we have all the simulations to help prepare for it. So that's what I'm imagining, but it's probably just simulations in terms of like who votes for who and who doesn't vote, and probably depends on different regions and stuff. You know, real nerd stuff. All right. 40,000 simulations every time the model is updated. It's not as simple as flipping coins, but the simulations are necessary because of the complex relationship between the different types of races. And the FLIPR acronym is also rather descriptive. FLIPR essentially consists with 3 different layers stacked up on top of one another: polls, non-polling leading indicators, e.g. fundraising, incumbency, and what we sometimes call fundamentals, or what we sometimes call fundamentals. So that's the fundraising and you're obviously, if you're an incumbent, you're going to have a bigger advantage than your opponent. So that would highly boost your leading indicators, I guess is what it's called. And then the final layer of race ratings from longstanding outside experts like the Cook Political Report. What is that? What is a Cook Political Report? I swear if it's from Cook County. Oh no, the Cook Political Report, a Substack. The Cook Political Report has provided political professionals with the right analysis to help them invest political capital with confidence. Okay. Oh, I see. They have a bunch of stuff on here. Okay. So they're like polling people, maybe. In fact, there are 3 versions of FLIPR that correspond to each layer. The light derives as much information as possible from polls alone. Classic is polls plus fundamentals, and deluxe is all 3 of those. While deluxe is our default version, almost all of our charts and tables on the FLIPR landing page allow you to flip back and forth between these versions. The way FLIPR is designed, the expert ratings layer, and probably the least important, the proverbial icing on top. But if you want to forecast without any expert ratings, we have you covered with light and classic. So with the expert ratings, what does that consist of? Is it just their own feelings? Because if that's so, I have some ratings for them to share. All right. FLIPR is part of the 538 model lineage. FLIPR has a new name, but is it a new model? I'd say probably not. If you're a former 538 reader, I retain the rights to all the models I designed for them per my deal with Disney. Okay, who cares? You'll recognize that some of what I've just described sounds familiar. In fact, some of the code in FLIPR just celebrated its 16th birthday, having survived since the first midterms forecast I built back in 2010 when 538 was stationed at the New York Times. Oh, I see. So they were first owned by the New York Times and then bought by ABC. Interesting. We think this track record is one of the things that makes FLIPR unique. Competing models come and go, succeed and fail, but few have been around long enough to truly have any sort of long-term track record. And our midterm forecast performed quite well both in 2018 and 2022. However, FLIPR and its predecessors have a lot of moving parts, and we've made refinements every year. While the basic foundation is similar to 2010, nearly every component of the model has been swapped out for a new version at some point. It's a little bit like the paradox of the ship of Theseus. If every component of a model has been upgraded at same point, is it still the same model? Who cares, Mr. Silver? Who cares? Just put your work out there. The model underwent a near-complete refit in 2018 when the Light/Classic/Deluxe concept was introduced. It also underwent another suite of changes in 2022 to reflect increasing political polarization. And even though we really liked the 2022 version of the model, we wound up making more changes and improvements this year, 2026, than I was originally expecting. Rather than just turning it back on, these changes have a common theme. They don't change the underlying structure or philosophy of the models so much as seek to execute on our original design with more precision, robustness, and internal consistency. I have complicated feelings about AI coding tools. So do we, brothers. So do we. And I very much disagree with the idea that they're a substitute for human judgment, but as a complement to human judgment, they're pretty nice. Probably, in fact, they're better for reviewing and refining an existing model than for building one from scratch. Basically, every single line of code from our 2022 model has been audited and in many cases improved. Many of these improvements are highly visible. They concern things like faster program runtime, better error detection, and better code hygiene that makes FLIPR easier to audit and update. But having software that speeds up some of the most tedious aspects of coding also freed up some time to test different hypotheses and clear a long list of items off our punch list. Some of these upgrades fell under a long-standing category of would be nice to have if only we had the time. For example, FLIPR now explicitly simulates ranked choice voting as used in Alaska and Maine. Building that code took a couple of hours and relied heavily on our expertise. It's not nearly as simple as telling an AI coder, okay, do ranked choice voting now. It probably would have taken a couple of days instead of a couple of hours in the world before Claude and ChatGPT. However, all right, so good to know that AI is being used in this, but at least he's transparent in how AI is being used. If he's using Claude to code, then that makes sense. I don't know about ChatGPT. I don't think ChatGPT could code yet. I think it's just a talking buddy. I mean, a large language model or whatever it's called. All right. Still, ranked choice voting is a fairly low stakes problem since the other 48 states don't use this process. Other questions we asked of the data and are more consequential. For instance, as elections became more predictable on the bias of overall partnership, with less ticket splitting than ever, while at the same time the polls have had some rough years. Should our model increase the relative weight on fundamentals as opposed to polls? The answer is basically yes, and FLIPR now does that. Another question, does the political environment now lock in more quickly such that indicators like the generic ballot are more predictive even months ahead of the time than they once were? Again, that data says yes. In this era of intensive partnerships, races don't necessarily shift that much between August and November. And there are a few unexpected shifts. FLIPR now accounts for that too. Why forecasting midterms is so hard? As we've said, FLIPR forecasts congressional and gubernatorial races based on a combination of polls, fundamentals, and expert ratings. The model fits primarily based on the Senate races since 1990 and the House and gubernatorial races since 1998. Compared with our presidential forecasts, which mostly defaults towards being polls only by election day, FLIPR is more of an even blend between polls and fundamentals. And in the deluxe expert ratings, though we have less influence than other major components. This is both because non-polling data is richer for House, Senate, and gubernatorial races than for the presidency. There are around 500 races combined in each midterm, rather than just one presidential race. And because polling data is sparser, many important House races receive little to no nonpartisan polling. For example, nonpartisan polling, for example. So we need other methods to forecast these races. I've emphasized the multi-layer nature of FLIPR, polls fundamental expert ratings, but there's also another dimension that cuts at a 90-degree angle to this. In FLIPR, there are both micro indicators that apply to one election, e.g. the polls in a particular Senate race, or how much money each candidate has raised in that state, and macro indicators like the generic ballot and the population that affect all of them. In the middle zone between the micro and the macro is a rich and sometimes turbulent environment. You can't just forecast each race individually and apply some sort of Monte Carlo simulation on top because race outcomes are somewhat correlated. There are years like 2016 when a party, in that case Republican, beats its polls across the board in a way that indicates systematic bias in the forecast rather than variance in individual races. Still, the correlation among congressional races is less than that in presidential elections. The majority difference being that you don't have the same candidates on the ballot in every race. In fact, this is especially true in midterm years as opposed to the presidential years, when the presidential race serves as more of an anchor on everything. The 2018 midterm was strong for Democrats, but also featured pockets of Republican strength, like in Florida or in Senate races in rural states that ousted Democratic incumbents. The 2022 map was patchy too, with essentially a mini red wave in New York and New Jersey that didn't extend to most other parts of the country. Bro, wasn't that... This might just be my bad memory, but I feel like that 2022, they were calling it the red wave, and it wasn't a red wave, it was a pink wave or whatever. It was just basically... it was just basically voters responding to the fact that Joe Biden was elected in 2020 and things hadn't really changed that much after the pandemic, right? Like, I'm sure we all forgot it because we have pushed that horrible memories out of our minds. But 2020, we didn't get the vaccine until the end of 2021, or at the beginning of 2021. No, it might have been the end. But either way, people still were staying at home, or I should say, like, people were still quarantining. People still had to quarantine because they were still getting sick, and not everyone was vaccinated. Plus, we didn't know how well the vaccines worked, right? So it was like COVID, but not full March 2020 COVID. It was like a weird summertime thing, and it was just crazy. Like, that whole period, people were like, "Can I go back and visit my family for the summer, or for winter, or for Thanksgiving?" It was just every season. It was like questions about getting social gatherings and stuff. But I thought it was pretty clear that the 2022 red wave was just because New York State, this was not mayor. Governor Cuomo, because of all those strict rules, I thought that's why the red wave happened in like Western New York, and then these more rural parts outside of New York City. I don't know, I might be wrong, but that's just what I thought of. All right, the rest of this document is more practical and less philosophical. I'll explain how FLIPR works in 7 high-level steps. Then I'll give you a fairly exhaustive list of what's new or different in the model in 2026. All right. Okay, first 7 steps. Step 1, calculate polling average for individual races and the generic ballot. The common thread between many of our politics models and our polling average algorithm, the code that we use to calculate our Trump approval ratings and generic ballot averages is mostly the same. For instance, I don't like the way Nate Silver writes. Why would you put a comma at the end there? Like that was a blah. Okay. And most of the same process is used in FLIPR. Polls are weighted because on residency, sample size, and the Silver Bulletin pollster rating, the polls are adjusted in various ways, such as for house effects. We take care to ensure that the model responds to new polls well, either being too bouncy or too impervious to new evidence. We found the best way to do this is to calculate what are essentially various lowless regression curves and then average more aggressive and more conservative versions. The difference between FLIPR, polling average, and others like our presidential approval ratings is that FLIPR makes a more comprehensive series of adjustments. FLIPR's house effect adjustment house effects are persistent differences in polling firms tending to rate Republicans or Democrats more highly, is more robust because FLIPR has more data to rely upon. It can derive these both from the generic ballot and from polls of individual races. It's also more punitive and expressly partisan or internal campaign polls when these are released to the public, essentially starting out with a prior that such polls are biased, which makes sense. FLIPR applies a likely voter adjustment, whereas our regular polling averages do not. Basically, every poll of registered voters or all adults is adjusted towards what we think the polls would say if they were conducted among likely voters instead. This is calculated by comparing polls that publish both registered voters or all adult and likely voter versions of the same survey. In the large majority of such surveys this year, 2026, for instance, Democrats gain ground on the LV versus the RV version, probably reflecting greater enthusiasm. Thus, the RV adults polls are shifted towards whatever party tends to win these comparisons. So far this cycle, Democrats, although the magnitude of the shift is shrunken towards a prior until we have enough such polls that FLIPR deems the prior can be entirely phased out. Finally, FLIPR applies a timeline adjustment based on the changes in the generic ballot. For example, if a race was last polled in March and Republicans have gained 3 points in the generic ballot since then, the model will take a fraction of those 3 points and add it to the Republican candidate's margin. Because our generic ballot average uses fairly conservative settings, this adjustment isn't usually that pronounced. But it does mean that our polling average in individual races can shift slightly, even if there is no new polling in that contest. So basically, FLIPR seeks to estimate what polls of a given race would say today if they were conducted on a likely voter bias. In this way, it hopes to avoid relying on stale polling. FLIPR also applies the likely voter adjustment to its average of the generic ballot and presidential approval, which our regular averages do not. This makes a material difference. As of early August, for example, Democrats are up about 6.5 points in our default generic ballot average, but that advantage expands to around 8 points after likely voter adjustments, which is the version that FLIPR uses. The likely voter adjusted version of the generic ballot can be found on the FLIPR landing page. Okay. Step 2. That was a lot for step 1, wasn't it? Man, it feels like we're reading textbook again. You can you can graduate out of the college, but the college never graduates out of you. Am I right? Sorry. Step 2, estimate the national environment and calculate Cantor similarly scores to derive the light snapshot for each race. The light version of our forecast is supposed to be polls only, but that creates a problem for races that have little or no polling. Our solution is to input polling-like estimates for these races based on FLIPR's calculation of the national political environment, and polling in similar races using an internal system we called Cantor, congressional algorithm using neighboring typologies to optimize regression. FLIPR's estimate of the national environment is based partly, but not entirely, on the generic ballot. It also calculates a bottom-up estimate of what polls of individual Senate and House races imply about the national picture. For example, say the generic ballot has Democrats up by 8 points, but polling of key races for Congress is more consistent with something like a D+4 environment instead. FLIPR will basically take an average of these, pegging the environment as something like a D+6 instead. That makes sense. Okay. Implicit in the bottom-up calculations is what we call partisan lean score for each state and district, which is based on how it voted in the past 2 presidential elections relative to the country's overall, as well as in recent state legislative elections. For congressional districts, estimates reflect new boundary lines after redistricting. Texas has a partisan lead of around R+11, for example. So if, say, Democrat James Tallarico leads Republican Ken Paxton in our Texas polling average by 2 points, that reflects a 13-point outperformance relative to the baseline. Individually, that's a noisy estimate, and Paxton is arguably a poor candidate. But when you apply this technique to all polled Senate and House races, these differences tend to cancel out. Though the implementation of this is more complicated in practice than in simplified example. Newly this year, the bottom-up estimate also places more weight on states and districts that are similar to most others. So a poll of swing districts in Pennsylvania will have more impact on the calculation than a race in Hawaii or rural Alabama. While you could just calculate a reasonable proxy forecast based on the national environment plus the district's partisan lean score, Cantor takes a couple of further steps. One is to adjust the prediction based on something we call elasticity, how sensitive a state or district is to changes on the national environment. Canonically, a state like New Hampshire is very swingy. Wow. It has a lot of cross-pressured moderate voters, while a state like Georgia is more bifurcated between strongly Democratic, e.g., black voters, young professionals, and strongly Republican groups, evangelical whites. This elasticity calculation, which is derived from voter-level microdata, is employed at various points by FLIPR, although for the most part it has a relatively minor impact. Cantor itself is a more involved process. Basically, it calculates similarity scores between any given combination of states or districts, creating what is essentially a set of 485 times 484 pairwise comparisons. This similarity score, in turn, are based on a variety of political, e.g., partisan lean scores, demographic, racial composition, religious composition, college educatedness. Damn, I can't believe that's a metric now. College educatedness. And geographic characteristics like region, geographic distance, urbanization, and how similar states or districts are across the entire set of these factors. Cantor then evaluates whether polls of individual races tends to be stronger or weaker than the baseline in similar states and districts. For example, say that Cantor is calculating its estimate for Iowa's 2nd congressional district in the northeastern part of the state, one of the most competitive races this year. Democrats are mostly outperforming presidential year partisan baselines in every race this year, but does that excuse me. But does that overperformance tend to be concentrated in states and districts that are similar to Iowa too? If so, Cantor will also project further outperformance there. Add fundamentals to calculate, step 3. Add fundamentals to calculate classic. Fundamentals basically gets at the exact opposite question from a polls-only model. Suppose that there were a national moratorium on state and district polls. How would you predict individual races? Well, you could get pretty far by looking at things like district partisanship, incumbency, and fundraising, especially if you were also able to use national polling series like the generic ballot, even if you didn't have any local polling data. FLIPR actually calculates 2 different versions of the fundamentals, however. What we call simple fundamentals is just the generic ballot plus each state or district's partisan lean score. Fancy fundamentals uses a whole host of factors based on a large-scale regression analysis of past races since 1990, conversely. Many of these factors fall under the category of candidate quality, such as experience in elected office and even the presence or absence of scandals. Prior to 2022, the model only used fancy fundamentals, but the more that polarization increased, and it's higher than ever now, that's crazy, but I mean, we should have known. We should have known. Polarization was it grew so much in like 2016, probably even before that, you know? The polarization probably started with Obama. Because if we remember, the polarization is kind of holds hands with I forget what the term is, but like you're not passionate about your candidate. You're not passionate about voting for your candidate because your candidate sparks something in you. You're passionate about voting against that candidate's opponents. That's what that's like this polarization kind of explained, you know, that's what's been happening and has been crazy. But we'll see. We'll see if it can end. We'll see if the pendulum swings back, and hopefully it doesn't swing back too hard. All right. The precise mix of simple fundamentals and fancy fundamentals varies based on overall national partisanship as well as the type of election. For congressional races, simple fundamentals now gets almost half the weight in many cases. Roughly speaking, this means that candidate quality factors, including incumbency, are only about half as important now as they were over the broader period since 1990. There we go. That's crazy. See, this is pure anti-establishment ideology right there. It's like if you're in government, and if you've been in government for a long time, probably not a good idea. But, okay. However, simple fundamentals tells you a comparatively less in gubernatorial races where there is still much more ticket splitting. E.g., Republican Governor Phil Scott will probably re-elected again in Vermont. New this year, FLIPR also looks at how much simple fundamentals and fancy fundamentals diverge. In Vermont, for instance, partisan lean and the national environment would imply that Democrat would almost certainly be elected governor, while the fancy fundamentals accounts for Scott's strong popularity as judged by his large re-election margin. In cases where simple fundamentals and fancy fundamentals are not aligned, the model trusts fundamentals less in general. In these cases, it both puts more emphasis on the polls and in the deluxe expert rating, increases the overall uncertainty associated with the race. The specific factor used in the fancy fundamentals calculations are as follows. Some factors can only be used in races with incumbents or only in congressional races, not governor, and these are designed accordingly. Partisan lean scores for the state or district, the national political environment as derived in in step 2. Incumbency, in fact, we technically fit separate regression for incumbent and open seat races. FLIPR's handling of incumbency is slightly complicated. It uses congressional approval polls to calculate whether the overall political environment is strong or weak for incumbents. It assumes that the incumbency advantage is larger in smaller, more idiosyncratic states and districts, where constituents' services tend to be more important. It uses the incumbent's margin in her last competitive race, adjusting for political environment at the time of the last election and changes in district boundaries. It looks at whether the incumbent is in their first elected term and whether they've defeated an incumbent in their previous race. That's pretty good. And for states that have redistricted, the incumbency advantage is less when there's a little overlap between a member's old and new districts. Okay, so also fundraising based on individual contributions, so no party PAC money. Nate Silver's not going to take that into account at all. Interesting. With the bonus from contributions from within a candidate's home state. Okay, so that means if they're fundraising within their own state, then that's bonus points. Elected experience on a 4-point scale from 0, never elected to anything, to 3, currently or formerly elected senator or governor. Party loyalty scores based on congressional voting records. That's a insane amount of data points to get. Candidates who vote against their party more often actually outperform electorally. Other factors held equal. This calculation is only used for congressional incumbents. There is no proxy for it for governors or for challengers, even if they served in Congress before. And scandals, where new scandals are treated as being more important than old scandals when a candidate has already survived an election with the scandal having been known to the public. That's crazy. That is a crazy point that if it's a newer scandal, people might or might not vote for you based on the newer scandals have more weight than the older scandals. I know that makes complete sense when we say it out loud like that, but it's just absolutely hilarious that it's being taken into like data account like this. It's crazy. All right. Step 4, add expert rating to get the deluxe. Every year we have a debate whether to retire the deluxe version and stick to a model that uses purely objective inputs, even though the expert ratings reflect other people's judgment and not ours. There are some undesirable properties from including them. For instance, if experts are looking at a silver bulletin forecast to help calibrate their ratings, the entire process becomes somewhat recursive. Furthermore, in recent elections, the deluxe version of our forecast typically only calls 1 or 2 additional races correctly across the 500 races we forecast every year compared to the classic. But we've decided to continue publishing deluxe as indeed treating it as the default forecast you see on the page. You can always click on the classic or light versions if you prefer them. That's because in the original designs of the model, expert ratings were intended to serve a fairly narrow purpose, basically to account for the idiosyncratic factors in each race that are not necessarily well captured by the fundamentals. Basically, to shift around a little bit of vote margin from state to state without changing the macro picture much. Expert ratings are not a good way to estimate the national environment, although the expert forecasts are good at discriminating between relatively stronger and weaker races for each party. They have a weird and persistent bias. Namely, expert raters tend to implicitly assume a neutral political environment, i.e. generic ballot of about 0 until quite late in the cycle. As of early August, for instance, the unadjusted expert ratings imply a political environment of around D+2 versus the roughly D+7 environment calculated by FLIPR Classic. In a D+2 environment, a candidate like Tallarico probably wouldn't win despite Paxton's weakness, but a D+7 would require much less overperformance. FLIPR's predecessors have always been aware of this tendency to and de-biased the expert ratings before applying them, but in auditing the code this year, we discovered some shortcomings in the way this de-biasing process has been applied to the model. Basically, because of some artifacts and some race and in some artifacts in how some races are rated, there's a bit of leakage from the experts' implicit assumptions about the national environment, i.e., wrongly assuming the generic ballot into the deluxe forecast. And we specifically do not think the expert views of the national environment provide much utility at all. Their value is solely in the rank ordering of different races relative to the national environment. In working on the model this year, we developed better techniques for removing this bias completely. So the steps in going from classic to deluxe are as follow. I'm not going to read that. We don't need to get that into. Let's go to step 5. Translates the current snapshots into forecast, accounting for projective changes in the national environment. This is one of the simpler steps. FLIPR calculates an estimates of the House popular vote based on macro level factors in elections since 1946, presidential approval ratings, the House popular vote in the previous election, polarization, and whether the election is a midterm. As of early August, for example, this calculation forecasts Democrats to win the popular vote by around 8.5, mostly because Trump's very poor approval rating. Meanwhile, Classic and Deluxe have their own estimates of the current national environment, which is currently closer to D+7. We call this the snapshot. The snapshot is the nudge towards the prior. So this year, for example, Democrats are expected to gain slightly more ground between August and Election Day. We don't apply this adjustment in Light, since Light is supposed to be polls-only model. Instead, in Light, the forecast is basically a snapshot, but with a greater uncertainty. I say nudged, however, because the effect of this adjustment is relatively gentle and essentially fades out by Election Day. Indeed, as the generic ballot has become more stable, the prior has somewhat less utility than it used in the forecasting elections, even months in advance. Step 6, account for uncertainty and calculate correlation between races, which I think is a very good point, because I don't know if people ever partnered up as much as, not partner up, but endorsed each other and stuff as much as they have this election, although that might just be me talking out of my ass. I don't know. A candidate with a 3-point lead in a race where the margin of error is 5 points will win their race 88% of the time. This might be a good estimate in a well-polled Senate or gubernatorial race under stable conditions on the eve of the election. If the margin of error doubles to 10 points, however, because the election is a long way off, polling is sparse, or the data is contradictory. They'll only win 72% of the time instead. That's much better than a toss-up, but still a considerably less confident forecast. Because all of our models are probabilistic, we tend to care a lot about this kind of stuff. It's not just the elections, it's not just that elections are uncertain, the degree of uncertainty is predictable, at least to some degree. Abdul El Sayed's near loss in the Michigan Democratic primary, despite a large polling lead, wasn't that surprising, given that it's not uncommon for primary polls to miss the mark by double digits, for example. So in FLIPR, uncertainty is higher when there's less polling in the race, there's a lot less undecided voters in the polls, there's more time to go until the election, and various subcomponents of the model disagree with one another, e.g., there's a big divergence between fundamentals and polls. However, this is only half the battle, and it's the easier half. As I've said, the errors in forecast of congressional and gubernatorial races are somewhat correlated with one another, although less than in presidential elections. So FLIPR not only has to estimate the uncertainty associated with each of the 500 plus races that it forecasts, but also how the uncertainty in one race relates to another one. If Democrats beat their forecast in the Iowa Senate race, for example, they will probably also do so in the Iowa gubernatorial race and in Iowa's 2nd congressional district. But we wouldn't expect a race in Hawaii to be particularly correlated with Iowa. FLIPR approaches this by breaking uncertainty down to three to five interlocking components, depending on how you count them. National error affects all races in the forecast roughly equally. If in one simulation the overall map is 3 points more Democrat or more Republican in the forecast, we basically just shift every race by 3 points in that direction. This in turn can be broken down into two further subcomponents. Drift, our term for the change in national environment between the current forecast and election day. There tends to be less drift, fewer macro level shifts in the polls in political climates with high polarization like the ones we're in now. And drift zeroes out as election day approaches. Election day error, basically the possibility of a systematic polling forecast error on election day itself. Local error, conversely, applies only to one race or one state. In fact, we now account for both of these conditions. In each simulation, we take one random draw that applies to all races, House, Senate, Governor, in a particular state. This is a new wrinkle for 2026. And then we draw a random error that applies only to exactly one race. Finally, correlated demographic error is an intermediate layer that sits between these and is the most complex layer. Basically, we use all the variables used in Cantor to simulate the possibility of underperformance or overperformance among particular subgroups. In one simulation, for example, Democrats might do better than expected among Hispanic voters, but worse than expected in the Northeast, and worse than expected among Catholics. This can produce a sort of geographic or thematic clustering of errors that we've seen in recent elections like 2018 and 2022. And FLIPR tries to create some maps like these. The institution is simply that errors are more correlated across similar states and districts. Step 7, simulate the election 40,000 times, including projecting turnout. Since almost all the parameters that FLIPR needs have been generated by this point, the simulation themselves aren't particularly complicated from an algorithmic standpoint. There are a few small wrinkles, however. FLIPR uses slightly fat-tailed distributions to account for the possibility of rare, truly out-of-sample events, although this effect has been dialed down from previous years. We use variance reduction techniques that make the simulation more stable, so the effective sample size is larger than 40,000 simulations. In the simulations, the simulations do get more complicated in the case of multi-way races. In a race with prominent independent candidates, FLIPR simulates the independents' vote sharing using right-tail statistic distribution, in which the independent usually doesn't come close but has some outside chance of gaining momentum and being a real factor in the race. In Maine and Alaska, FLIPR now carries out a fairly faithful simulation of ranked choice voting. In states like Georgia, where elections go to runoffs if no candidate gets 50% of the vote, FLIPR simulates this too. And FLIPR simulates the complex jungle primary process in Louisiana's House race, which are using it for the last time this year. FLIPR also probabilistically simulates election turnout and calculates an estimate of the national House popular vote. The turnout simulations are essentially post-processing step. They don't actually affect our calculations of vote shares or the probability of given party winning in a particular race or the House or the Senate. Nevertheless, it is designed fairly elaborate. Okay. I think we should just go check out. This is a bunch of like, we understand how this works. How do we go see the FLIPR? Okay, here, let's go to his website. Is this just natesilver.net? Oh, really? Just a poker player at heart, but sometimes I make election for it. Oh my God, of course he's a gambler. natesilver.net. Hopefully that works. There we go. Oh, it's just the silver bulletin. Here we go. FLIPR. No, I want to actually see the thingy. How do we flip between design to view on the web? That's the same page, brother. Okay, so this is it. It's just he releases polls every so often. Supposed for paid. I'm not gonna pay. Okay, so this is just the Talarico / okay, governor. Oh, here we go. House. Let's go. Oh, we don't have any California states. That's a damn. Okay, fine. I was gonna try to look up the Tessa Johnson one, but I see that's one of the polls that is not that important. Okay, let's see. Governor, we have Becerra versus Hilton. The polling is heavily in favor of Becerra. That's hilarious. Like Becerra's at 58%. Oh, these little jumps must have been interesting. All right, okay, so I see. They take a bunch of polling data from different places. Okay, generic ballot. Democrats lead just barely. So what House races? Alaska, Florida, Kentucky, Maine, 2. Oh wait, let's see Senate. Okay, we'll go back to the Senate. Hopefully it's more. Is Maine still in here? Oh, did they actually get someone to replace what's his name? I totally forgot what that guy's name was from Maine. Chat, you're gonna have to help me out here. The one guy from Maine, and he was like, I'm a Maine fisherman or lobsterman or whatever that guy's name was. He had to drop out because, oh my God, he was not respecting women. So I guess he got replaced by this Jackson person. So that's good. What else? We got Iowa. I don't care. let's see, Florida, now that we're at Nixon. Oh, crap. Okay. Angie Nixon going kind of low. She's at 39%. But, they both, it might be too early. They need to have more debate. They need to have debates, period. Not Georgia. Okay, let's see. Oh, the El Said race. Crazy. It was going back and forth. This looks like the 2020 election. Crazy. South Dakota. Yeah, I've just been so focused on local politics that I'm just like, I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with any of these names. Okay, but that's cool. That's cool. Hopefully he can get more hopefully they can get more house races in here. But I guess it really just matters if people are actually going out there, the pollsters, right? And they're probably not in freaking California District 34, I think it was. So, interesting. All right. So yeah, big shout out to Nate Silver. We're going to be checking in on this and maybe hopefully taking some inspiration from this. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Let's get into what else did I say we were going to cover today? More news. Okay. Doo-doo-doo. No. Let me see. Did Worker Power Hour release anything that we can react to? Oh yeah, we watched that a long time ago. Yeah.
Teamsters 1932 Broadcast Network.
All right, so this is from a week ago. Oh, I missed it. I was listening to it a little bit. But yeah. I don't know if I want to watch this right now, actually. I'm doing a little research on some unions because man oh man, things are getting interesting to say the least. The union endorsements. No, I know what we want. I know what we need to watch. We need to take this over here real quick. Oh, here. Okay, I think I have something.
Our government reflects people, and people are going to people.
All right, let's check in with our favorite friend of the show. No, not friend of the show. Our favorite white feminist lesbian, Sarah Longwell, who I have beef with every day because she has beef with Hassan Piker. But I wanted to see this interview that she did with Heather Cox Richardson, which, you know, we are a Heather Cox Richardson stan channel here. we will always never dissent against Heather Cox Richardson. So it'll be interesting to hear these two Republicans
Hello,
talk.
everyone, and welcome to the Focus Group podcast. I'm
Bro, sometimes it's like I see her wearing the V-necks, and I'm like, man, that was. Thank God I am Latina. Thank God I was born with melanin in my skin, because this could have been me, bro. Had I been full white, this. I'm teasing.
Sarah Longwell,
right.
publisher of The Bulwark, and this week it's 4th of July. But it's not just any 4th of July, it's America's 250th anniversary. In a normal time, that would be a great unifier and could help.
I just realized, I'm sorry, she got Rosie O'Donnell teeth. She has similar teeth to Rosie O'Donnell. She's got that the same lips, the same way of talking, bro. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Bring people together around some of our lofty national ideals. But it's no secret that the Trump years have complicated a lot of people's relationship with patriotism. And some polling, like a recent Fox poll, showed that 27% of Democrats considered themselves proud of the country.
Let me go get some more
compared
water.
to 83%
right
of
back.
Republicans. But at the same time, 61% of Democrats considered themselves extremely or very patriotic. Gallup also found recently that a record low 58% of U.S. adults say they are extremely or very proud to be an American. The number for Democrats has basically fallen off a cliff during both Trump terms. So we're setting out to explore the complicated feelings people, particularly Democrats, are having about America during the Trump years. So if you're having a tough time, I hope you come out of this discussion feeling seen, as my friends and the Democratic Party say. My guest today is pretty good at staying hopeful. Heather Cox Richardson, author of Letters from an American on Substack. It is one of my favorite Substacks. Heather, thanks for being here.
Such a pleasure to be here, my friend.
It's so fun when you're here. I had a question. I was looking back at when the bicentennial was, and I missed it by just a smidge, but you might have been like 10, 8. I don't know. I don't want to do it. But do you remember the bicentennial?
Truthfully, I can't do the math myself. I was born in 62 and that was 76. So I would have been 13.
Okay. So 13. So do you remember it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So remember, when I was young, I lived in quite a rural area. So we didn't do the big, we saw the tall ships, but only online. Although I have an interesting tall ship story for you if you're interested. But we certainly were paying attention to what was going on around the country. I had been paying close attention to Watergate, even as a young kid. So I was very conflicted about how to approach 76. But, there were the reenactors, which were interesting themselves. There were the focus on the bicentennial minutes on TV. There was the idea of people celebrating the Declaration and so on. So we did all that. And then actually that day was cloudy where I live on the coast of Maine. And we spent the day with friends. I hate to say this, but actually painting, creosoting a deck. And then we had some kind of a cookout, and my friends and I actually set off fireworks that night. And the guy that I grew up with, like a brother to me, actually got caught by one of the fireworks and got pretty bad burns, 2nd-degree burns, not 3rd-degree burns. But ever since then, I have had a real fear of fireworks. So there you go. There was the 4th of July in 1776 for Heather Cox Richardson.
In 1776 and 1976.
1976. There you go.
1976. Perfect. That sounds like a right up to the getting burned by fireworks. That sounds like a very traditional American 4th of July. But considering that it was the bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of America's founding, was there like a vibe? Like, do you remember people feeling celebratory? Do you remember people feeling proud? Were there think pieces in the newspaper about America's complicated history, or was it a pretty straightforward celebration of the United States?
Well, do remember that I was 13 years old and
Sure.
in a very rural area. But that being said,
Sorry, I'm laughing because what the frick kind of question is that, Sarah Longwell? Oh my God. Stardust, my friend. Yes, bro, I heard that in my ear and I was like, huh? Full on, the freaking cat. My friend. These are some heavy lifting words here. I'm going to have to rethink my admiration of Heather Cox Richardson. But yeah, Stardust City Hag mod, got it. I have many feelings about this association, but I'll slow it down. I'll allow it. My friend, yeah. And so like why tell me why my favorite Sarah Longwell is like, so did you have the woke brigade trying to end the bicentennial like how they did with the whatever the frick it's called now? That's what she's really asking. She's really asking if people were upset that they were celebrating 4th of July back then.
Even at the time, I remember there was a lot of conflict. You know, we were just coming out of Watergate. It was not clear what the future was going to look like. To some degree, my earliest memories were the Vietnam War, which was not really far in the rearview mirror. There were changes coming, and good changes as well as bad changes, right? So in 1975, you get Bruce Springsteen hitting the charts and being on the cover of both Time and Newsweek on the same week,
Born
which
in
is
the USA.
Pardon me?
No.
For Born in the USA.
Oh, you are so cute.
Yes, thank you. Roast her. Cook her ass.
Cute, my young friend. Born to Run, of course. Yes. So there you go.
Born to Run.
And that came out.
Cook her ass. Sorry. Oh my God, bro. Of course, Sarah Longwell is the type to be like, yeah, Bruce Springsteen, that's a real American man right there. Let's run that back so we can hear.
Which is
US
coming.
Look
and
at,
good.
First off, look at Sarah Longwell. She's throwing out the rocker fingers. And tell me why her little pudgy hand just does, it looks the most, it has no anti-establishment in it. It's all
Changes as well
establishment.
as bad changes, right? So in 1975, you get Bruce Springsteen hitting the charts
Watch.
and being on the cover of both Time and Newsweek on the same
For
week,
Born
which
in
is
the USA.
Pardon me?
For Born in the USA.
Oh, you are so cute, my young friend. Born to Run, of course. Yes. So there you
Born
go.
to Run.
And that came.
What a freak. I'm sorry. Thank you, Stardust. Thank you, Stardust. Oh, run. Okay, it's the third studio album. Hold on. What song is Born in the USA off of? Because I want to say Born in the USA is not a song from the 70s. Oh, 1984, brother. 10 years later, he wrote that. Bro, Sarah Longwell should be embarrassed. Let me close this, Rosie O'Donnell. Sarah Longwell should be embarrassed, bro. I even knew that Born in the USA was an 80s song. Oh my God. Oh my God. She's
Came out in 75. Pardon me?
For Born in the USA.
Oh, you are so cute, my young friend. Born to Run, of course. Yes. So there you
Born
go.
to Run.
Look at
And
that
that came out
cut
in
that.
75, August in 75. And he hits the cover of the Time and Newsweek. It was clear, if you were paying attention to music, certainly, that we were entering a new era. Then you've got the rise of Jimmy Carter in Georgia and the support that he has with musicians down there and so on. So you had this tension. And that's one of the things that I actually wanted to point out talking to you is that
Sorry, I can't stop laughing. Sarah Longwell was so sure that Born in the USA came out in 1975.
I think when you look back, everyone remembers the rosy stuff, right? You do it in your own life. You also do it in your country. But the truth is that every 50 years, there's always tension in the United States. And curiously, at these 50-year intervals, sometimes the tension is higher than it is in other times, not because of that anniversary, but simply because of where those dates fall. So you have the 20s, 26, right? 1926, when the country is deeply divided between those people who are succeeding in the new economy of the the Republicans in the 20s, but the farmers and the laborers and people of color who are being left behind. And then in 1876, you've got the real problems of the American South in that period of Reconstruction. People also forget that it's just about the time of the 4th of July, really it's about between the 2nd and the 3rd, that news comes back east of the Battle of the Little Bighorn and the destruction of Custer's 7th Cavalry, George Custer, Armstrong Custer's 7th Cavalry.
F
And people are like,
shit,
what's going on here?
The Battle of Little Bighorn. What do you mean? It was attempt to continue the genocide of the Native American population. Jesus.
There is always, you can point to tensions in those periods, even though they're the parades and they're the barbecues and so on. You know, American democracy is never a straight shot to, you know, cherry pie and roses.
I'm glad you set it up that way, because I want to delve into the complexity of what I'm hearing from voters, because we have been asking voters now for several weeks and I want to say we start every single focus group, everyone that I do. We do 3 to 4 a week, and we always start the same way. How do you think things are going in the country? That is just the opening question. Sometimes we'll ask if
I'm sorry. The only reason Sarah Longwell has to keep asking this question is because she's Republican and she can't accept the answer that things are because of the Republican Party, and specifically the Republican Party embracing Donald Trump.
It's state specific. We might ask how things are going in their state as well. And this time we did a similar version where we basically asked people, how do you think things are going in the country, considering we're at our 250th anniversary? And what you got back was just a real mix of emotions. Even when we were sort of asking people, do you feel proud to be an American, or do you feel negatively about being an American? People were pretty mixed on that. I want to wrestle with that today, the complexity of America and how we feel about it, especially during an anniversary. But before we get to the voters, I want to give you a reaction to a clip from John Ossoff a few days ago at a rally in Georgia.
We will do better, Stardust. We will do better to react to her content, because it is my duty as a internet lesbian leftist, the ILL, to call out the other internet lesbian right-wingers, okay? No one can go against her, because she will always pull out that card. And you know it. You know it. You've seen it. You've seen conservatives do this with every little card that they can. The cards that they accuse us of pulling out every time. She will try to do that, and I'll be like, no, Miss Sarah Longwell. Let's go butch to butch. Soft butch to soft butch. Listen, you on the wrong side, homie. You are on the wrong side. I see you back there with your How to Eat an Elephant book and your hope of some elephant stuff. Like you're riding real hard for the GOP. I get it. Even Miss Heather Cox Richardson, bless her, cannot let go of the Republican Party. I get it. The Republican Party is basically Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln was the best American president of all time. I understand. But we gotta let things go, okay? We gotta let things go. And don't try to bring conservatism or corporatism to the Democratic Party. We're trying to kick that out.
Georgia, that I could not have loved more, in part because it feels like it speaks directly to this tension for voters and articulates it really well. Let's listen.
Americans aren't a race. We're a people. United not by ethnicity, but by shared convictions. And that is what makes us exceptional and a beacon to the world.
Oh, it's kind of quiet, huh?
Just think, 250 years on, what the founders would see if they visited us today.
Yeah, what
but
would
wait,
they see?
They would see that slavery had been abolished.
Yep.
They would see that Americans without land, and then women's, and then the descendants of slaves had secured voting rights. They would see that our science and discovery propelled human knowledge to unimaginable heights, and that those 13 colonies had grown into a superpower that defeated the Nazis and communism. They'd see a pluralist democracy, people of all colors descended from every point on earth, stitched together out of many nations into one. But they'd also see a nation that at the height of its wealth and power fell into the very traps they most feared.
Yup. Dirty, bro.
devouring itself in bitter conflict between warring factions captured by special interests.
Freaking
And they'd
Heather
see a
trying to not
faithless
nod along with
president
this.
exploiting this rot to pursue the absolute power they overthrew.
What do you make of Ossoff there? Like, not only does he do the USA chants, which I love. You read my book, but in the book, I do.
Sarah Longwell said not only does he do the USA chants, which I love, bro. You really walked into Donald Trump, didn't you? Y'all really walked into Donald Trump. You fell for his stupid little USA chants. Y'all fell for his little putting on the hard hat. And he's like, yep, he's for construction. He's for miners. I mean, coal miners. He's for coal miners. I think he's for the other miners too. But yeah, he really went out there and LARPed as the normal people, and we accepted it. We didn't question it at all. And it's because people like Sarah Longwell just sort of get so enamored with USA chants. Like, what? What?
The reason I'm so impressed by this is this gets at something that I think is really important to Americans, which is they love America. Like, they are of America. And so
Yes,
they like actually
we're not a race,
I don't know,
bro.
president, but a candidate or
It's
a
an
leader
ideology.
who reminds them of the good stuff while not sugarcoating or shying away from the hard stuff. And I just felt like he really caught that tension better than I've seen any politician do in quite some time.
I agree with that. And, just by the way, I am of the understanding that he writes his own speeches.
He does write his own speeches.
But there's a
Oh my
longer
God.
story behind that. And one of the things that I've really encouraged people to do who are in leadership positions is to tie the problems of today to our history, in the sense that, and one of my big role models is Abraham Lincoln, who did the exact same thing rhetorically that Ossoff is doing, saying,
Oh,
hey, we have these
shit. That
great
makes a lot of
principles in the Declaration of
sense.
Independence, and look what we have done with them. We've had this incredibly successful run, and yet that is being challenged in Lincoln's day by a small group of elite Southern enslavers who are trying to destroy those principles. And
Yep.
Ossoff is doing the same thing. And the trick to that then is not only
Elites.
identifying that and calling out what's going on in the United States today, but making people understand that that's the reason gas is expensive. Like, it's not that you can either have cheap eggs or you can have a democracy. They're all the same story. And that, I think Ossoff is doing very, very well, but he is not the
Yeah.
only one. Zoran Mamdani has been
There
doing
you
it
go.
incredibly.
Thank you. Bring up Hassan Piker to make Sarah Longwell twist and turn in her chair.
Well, as mayor of New York. His speech about the victory of the Knicks was, I think we'll be teaching that speech in years to come. It's only 8 minutes
that's
long. and
epic. Sorry. Heather Cox Richardson is a history person. And if she's already identifying current things that she deems as historical, that's crazy. And tell me why it's with Zoran Mamdani. Tell me why.
Was just absolutely beautifully done. But you're also seeing it among a lot of Western figures. Jason Crow in Colorado, Rob Sands and Josh Turek in Iowa, certainly Tina Smith in Minnesota. This idea that we're really reclaiming American democracy and taking strength from it to combat those who would destroy it in our era. I think that's the story of this moment.
Yeah, I agree. I want to get into voters because I could talk about this with you for a long time, but let's get into the voters and then we can circle back and talk more about this. But like I said at the top, the Trump administration is really complicating a lot of people's relationship with patriotism and America at the moment. So I want to start with some of the
Trump
Democrats who feel
administration is doing
downright
that?
ashamed of the country right now.
I was in Canada a few weeks ago and I was like, please don't let I don't want to be identified as an American, because I just think I'm just so ashamed of our behavior as a country and the hatred and just just vitriol towards our neighbors. I think before.
Okay, she sounds like she's from Wisconsin or Minnesota. So that makes sense why she would go up to Canada and would be scared to identify as an American. Because I'll tell you what, if she's from the Midwest, East Coasters have been, the left, the left and the West Coast, the East and the West Coasters have been doing this for decades at this point, okay? If y'all remember, my earliest memory was post 9/11 when people, my earliest memory of this is when people were going to Europe and were like upset that, that people were calling them out for whatever bullshit, whatever BS was happening, in Iraq and Afghanistan. And, there was, and this is a common thing, you'll freaking hear it from California, because especially for those people that go to Mexico as well, they will identify as Californians to get around the American hatred, right? Or the feelings that the rest of the world has for Americans. They will identify as Californians. Probably people from New York City will do the same. But yeah, it's a common thing around here. And around here, I mean around California, the LA area, the Inland Empire. It's a common thing for people to openly laugh and say, I don't want to identify as American when I go overseas. I tell them I'm from California. Or even better yet, since we're all immigrants here in America, they just claim whatever, immigrant ethnicity that their parents had or whatever. It's crazy. I can't believe Sarah Longwell is just finding out about this because it's happening in the Midwest.
For this last election, I still had a lot of hope that there were a lot of Americans who maybe just didn't have the privilege to take the time to educate themselves. And now watching the things that Trump is doing and his cronies, and the fact that like anyone still supports that, has given me like a complete like existential crisis with like who I thought Americans were and what we stood for.
I'm embarrassed to go to other countries for trips or to talk to other people from other countries because our country is run by a dictator that all he does is crime.
My family's from Jamaica. That's everybody's favorite place to go for vacation, right? But like actually living in Jamaica, seeing what it's like to actually deal with life as a Jamaican, a lot of people, not just from Jamaica, from the West Indies, from around the world, an American citizenship is gold, and it still is to this day. So from that perspective, I do take that seriously. At the same time, my reason for not being proud to be an American right now, I think, is because it's not really about the president. It's more so I do think that Americans don't realize how privileged they are.
I feel like I've been ashamed to be an American since I was maybe in college.
Damn.
I backpacked through Europe during, the Iraqi war and Afghanistan conflict. And, I really got a worldview at that time as like a 22-year-old kind of lesson, from people I met from around the world. It really kind of shaped my thinking. It's horrible what is done to people, in this country every day. But it's been like that pre-Trump. It's just magnified now. And, it's like, that's why I'm always going to vote for change.
Especially like with the 4th of July coming up and the 250th anniversary, it's going to be a struggle for me, especially because my entire family, my closest friends are all the opposite of me. And so it's like my husband and I kind of are the outsiders trying to decide what we can and can't say without causing a battle. It frustrates me, like we go to a concert and all of a sudden the last song is Proud to Be an American, and everybody stands up and, puts their heart on their hand on their heart. And my husband and I are looking at each other saying, we just can't do it in today's environment, just not feeling it.
A lot of times when I was growing up, it was kind of just like, okay, like it's the 4th of July, you have to put on like red, white, and blue, and you have to go to a parade. But now I'm like, I'm not putting on red, white, and blue.
People hating on being embarrassed of being American to show to Heather Cox Richardson. I love this.
This is the bummer part of the of listening to the voters, and I gotta say, as somebody who also grew up, I also grew up in a small rural town like you did, but I was in central Pennsylvania.
I know, because I read your book.
That's right. But you know what? Somebody did sing "Proud to Be an American" at every fair,
bro.
And there were the town fireworks.
Okay, bro, it wasn't just a small town thing. Okay, we were doing "Proud to Be an American" here in Rancho Cucamonga, here in San Bernardino. Okay, it's not just a small town thing. I'm gonna pull out my white woman card right now. These white women are a little bit out of touch, you know what I mean?
That the fire department would put on, that you get really bummed out if you couldn't go because it was raining. And I grew up with a very firm sense of America being good, just based on where I grew up. I grew up around, and granted, it is deep Trump country now. And it had always voted Republican, but now it is, even the numbers of voters have really climbed in the Trump era. I think one of the reasons I was never attracted to the Democratic Party as like a young person is I felt like they didn't like America as much as I did, or as much as I wanted people to like.
She said the Republican Party did America drag better than the Democratic Party, and she went with the more passable drag. What the F, man? Both parties are LARPing as Americans. And she said, I'm going to pick the one that's LARPing better. That's crazy. Let's hear what Heather says, if she says anything.
Like America. I always was like, look at how great America is. And I still feel that way, except I totally am with these guys that I have been in no mood to celebrate America's 250. None.
What?
I'm the audience for the 250, and I cannot feel
she's having
what I
problems
want to
with
feel about the country right now. And I guess what do you think the difference is?
Dare I say Sarah Longwell's questioning her conservatism. That's okay. That's okay. We've all been there. It's okay to be a little liberal curious, I think, Sarah.
Between sort of patriotism and like being proud of the country. Like, are those different things? Are those the same things? Because I would still say I'm pretty patriotic while not feeling particularly proud of the country at the moment. And I'll just say this last thing, which is I think America electing Trump a second time did real psychological damage to people who thought maybe even a little bit. I knew this could happen, but I really hoped there was enough in there to keep this from happening again. And the fact that Trump was elected a second time after.
What do you mean? Look at how much she's clutching her fist to her chest. She's literally pro clutching. Okay, I want chat to take note. Here, let me turn my camera down a little bit. She's clutching her chest and talking so passionately. Here, let's hit play.
After trying to overturn an election, I do think it's cratered people's sense of who we are, at least at the moment.
I think I'm a little bit further along that spectrum than you are in this.
What was that? Is she on the spectrum. She's on the autism spectrum for sure.
Of the country at the moment. And I'll just say this last thing, which is
not a dig.
I think America
I'm just
electing
saying,
Trump,
like she's you see the signs. You see the signs. Okay. Now we have a little
I think I'm a little bit
perspective
further
on her.
along that spectrum than you are, in the sense that, when the Obama Presidential Center opened a week or so ago, I don't know when it was, I read somebody saying, how could the same country that elected this man elect Donald Trump twice? And my first reaction was, well, the same country didn't, in the sense that when you think of the way that voting has gone in the United States, certainly really since the 1980s, but 1988 in the arrival of talk radio, and then 1996 in the arrival of Fox News Channel, we have created a population that is not operating in the real world.
Yes.
And so when I think about this country, I think about that large.
Okay, hold on. Heather Cox Richardson just said that the people that created talk radio, aka, the Rush Limbaugh types, the evangelical Christian preachers, and then Fox News operate and live in a different world. Brother, that's the same world that Sarah Longwell was a part of not too long ago. And I would argue that she's still part of it. She's still part of this conservative media machine. Sure, she's not pushing Donald Trump, but she's pushing whatever conservative ideology she's holding. Like, I don't know, probably this anti-Hassan propaganda.
Larger problem with the fact that we are no longer based in reality for a significant number of the people who live here. And that's one of the things that you and I are combating. That's why we're here and why we do what we do, at least in part. But in terms of patriotism in this moment, one of the real changes we've seen since the 1980s, I think, is that people have ceased to believe that it's their government, that they have become subjects in a sense rather than citizens. And
that's
the
for
reason
sure.
that I'm actually quite excited about the 250th this year and feeling quite patriotic about it is because Americans are rediscovering that. You know, we never had a perfect past and we've never had a perfect present. What we have had is moments of time when people put skin in the game and said, I don't like the laws about voting, so I'm going to change them. Or I don't like the laws about taxes, so I'm going to change them. Or I don't like the way we're dealing with foreign affairs, so I'm going to change that. And I think you're seeing that again now in a big way. But part of rethinking what it means to be proud to be an American and what patriotism means is refocusing not on the idea that, you know, America's always great, because here's a newsflash. America has always, in every single year that it has existed, been great and done great things. And America has always, in every single year it existed, been awful and done horrible things, in the sense that, you know, our government reflects people and people are going to people. They're both good and bad. The trick for us as a country is to make sure we establish the guardrails and the mechanics of a government that is good more than it is bad. And if we remember that, and remember that the real heart of America is, like Ossoff said, that commitment to a set of principles, then we can work around the bad stuff and work to make a better country. And I look around me and I see, in a way that I have not seen in my lifetime, my really conscious lifetime, American people stepping back up to the plate. And that is how you change the direction of a country, I think.
That
and so
is
I actually feel
what.
quite good about
Sorry. I'm a little bit hyped right now because I feel like Heather just put Sarah in her place without Sarah even realizing it. But what Heather Cox Richardson said is Americans have to step up to the plate and put skin in the game, brother. Step up to the plate and put skin in the game. Is that not what we just saw with our interview with Kamal Mahmoud? Isn't that what we just saw? Him talking about Jaws Sita, him talking about Ben Vasquez, I think. That is people standing up, putting their skin in the game. I hate to say it. You know, even if I didn't care even if I hadn't, didn't know anything about Mayor Warren coming and saying, being, Republican and having those conservative values. It's like, what is she putting? What is she risking? She's only risking her job, and that's where it's just like, I can't trust someone like that. I can't trust these politicians that are like operating like they're a small business owner and they're just doing transactions through, or not even a small business owner. They're acting like a corporation, bro. Like having these meetings with lobbyists, sorry, it's just a lot. Let's continue.
About it. I was actually, before we talked, I was actually pulling out not just my flag, but all the sort of flag accoutrements that have accumulated as gifts over the years that I've never flown before or never put out before. And this year I will.
You're inspiring me because I know you're right. It is so much of it. And again, this is the thesis of my book in a lot of ways, which is, yes, people have light and dark in them, and leadership can make a huge difference in terms of what is pulled out of us. And we do, I think that's the trouble with Trump, right? Is it feels like he's pulling the worst instincts of people out. He's taking all the bad stuff and he's shining a spotlight on that. And the question is, this is what I liked about what Ossoff was doing, is to say, no, let's shine a light on the good parts. Let me try to bring out the best in us. Because I do think that is the hunger that Americans have right now. Like, they do still love their country and what it stands for, but they just understand that it is coming nowhere close to meeting its aspirations as stated. And that can get sort of soul crushing, because what you want to be is moving forward. But you're so right. And you always hit on this point, and I always appreciate it when you do, that the best way for Americans to rediscover their love for America is to participate in making America the thing that you want it to be.
Yes. And I think that one of the things that really jumps out in this moment is that doesn't only mean getting involved in politics, although of course it means getting involved in politics. And, I'm always excited when I hear people say, well, I ran for the school board. I'm on the school board now. I'm volunteering in this sort of an organization, or that sort of an organization. But, I was talking to a woman, I guess about a year ago now, who said, I started getting involved in this group in my town, and it was involved in some kind of social reform, and I don't know what. And she she said, and I realized that I really needed to know more than I did. And that if I was really going to make a difference, I needed to be a lawyer. So I've gone back to law school. And that sort of sense that you are contributing to your community and that your community is pushing you to be a bigger person and possibly a better person than you were before. That's the kind of mentality that I think a great leader can bring out. And the comparison I would make to something like Ossoff, and I'm always careful about doing this because I don't want people to say, oh, she says Ossoff or somebody is like some great hero in the past. But when Abraham Lincoln was trying to convince people to stand against those elite enslavers who were completely advocating for the idea that Black Americans should never have rights in the United States. And it was a deeply racist country. America was a deeply racist country then. The thing is that Lincoln would go to these audiences that were full of people heckling him. And he would say, he would sort of in good humor sort of push back on them, their comments about how he just wanted a Black wife or whatever. And he would say, either we believe that people are equal
was the criticism.
or we don't.
That was the criticism that they were throwing at Abraham Lincoln back then. They were like, he wants to have an African American wife. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And if we don't, it's only a question of time until you're not going to be equal either. But if you believe that, let's tear up the Declaration of Independence. Let's go to the statute books where it's written, and because it's in the frontispiece of them, it's not itself a law, and tear it out. Do you want to do that? And when forced to recognize that the positions they were taking were actually against the principles of the country, we actually have speeches where the people who are recording those speeches have the audience yelling, no, don't do it, don't do it. And that ability to remind people of what the United States of America is supposed to be, that's what our leaders should be doing now. And a number of them are. Ossoff's not the only one. When that happens, as you say, they call us to our better nature.
Let's keep going here. There were a lot of folks in these groups who were sort of higher on America as a long-term proposition, but are deeply conflicted about this moment. Let's listen.
I still have hope that this is not forever and that people who did vote for this, like a large portion, are like, oh, okay, like finally coming around.
I feel like this is absolutely a dark chapter, but I like to think of it as just a chapter, and that the ideals of our country are still there in the background, and that we will get back to that.
I'm embarrassed that there are people that don't believe in news and science and education, but I have hope. And when I show up to protests and when I see the amount of people that are fighting for democracy and our freedoms and change, the hope is where I'm at with it, because I know it's just a small group of people that are not feeling this way. But what I'm really embarrassed about is the government portion, not necessarily the common man. It's the government that has put us in a position of pitting against each other, which has been going on forever and a day, like even, Roman times. It's a proven method of dividing and conquering and power and rich and money. But most people still feel that it's worth the fight for democracy, to save democracy.
When you see the things that were happening in Minneapolis with ICE, that does not make me proud. And I think that, when you go to perhaps other countries and they know you're from the United States, that's a reflection of you being from the United States. And I'm not proud of that. I'm also not going to let Donald Trump live in my head and negate all of the things that I think have been really great about our country.
The term American's been co-opted. The flag's been co-opted. It's disgusting what we're seeing. However, while the country's always had problems and the system's not the greatest, I think, it's up to us. It's up to voters.
I think I could go back to being proud to be an American, but it doesn't mean I have to be proud to be one at the moment. I think the way that we've alienated so many of our allies and our behavior towards, thinking, oh, we're going to take Greenland and then we're going to take Cuba and, this is next. And none of that makes me proud. I would just as soon not be associated with this country now, but that's not a permanent thing. At least I hope it's not.
I feel like we all go through like a phase, whether it's a point in our maturity or a point in our lives, where we kind of look at America and we're like, oh, we're the bad guys. And maybe we have some times in our lives where we're like, oh, we're the good guys, or we're not doing that great, or we're the bad guys. I feel like all of us here might agree that we're kind of in that phase now as a nation of we feel like we're the bad guys and we're making all these mistakes and harming communities inside and outside of our country.
Yes,
There's been different periods where we felt good or bad about it. And I think a lot of where that comes from, for me at least, is we're proud to be an American because the promises that we're told in history class or through the Bill of Rights or Declaration of Independence and through the promises that our nation is providing to us. But when that's juxtaposed against the reality of the situation, that patriotism fades away once we kind of see the fuller picture of it.
I just think these Americans really highlight to me something I hear all the time, where you can hear this sense of, no, I believe in America and this thing we're doing. I'm just so frustrated with where we are now. But I also believe we can get through it. And I don't know about you, but when you go out and you talk to your readers or you get emails from your readers, do they say the phrase to you, you help keep me sane?
Constantly.
Constantly, right? That's the one we get the most. And there's something interesting in that. It's one, Sarah. There's something about the world right now that feels like it's been turned upside down for people, right? They feel like their understanding of who we are as a country.
Is this what the Mayans meant? Is this what the Mayans meant, that the Earth would go at 2012 would be the end of the world? That's what they meant. It was the end of normal politics.
Our values war has been turned upside down, and they feel like somebody's up there saying the sky is purple, and we're like, no, it's blue. It's blue. And they're like, thank God somebody still thinks it's blue. And they also see the same things that I do. And I think that people come to us because they are trying to feel like both a sense of, tell me that what I'm seeing isn't crazy, and also maybe tell me it's going to be okay, or help us formulate a plan to get out of this. And so what is your advice to people for staying sane as we claw our way through this particular moment?
Well, I think we just talked about it. Find your people and find something to do so that you feel as if you're contributing to the survival of democracy. But remember that democracy is the system of government that is a deeply human enterprise, and that is people's ability to determine their own futures, whatever that looks like to you. So to the degree you are helping other people learn to read or make it through the end of their life or get their grocery shopping done, that too is part of contributing to a community that is going to create this kind of a government. So what I say to people is stay involved in politics to whatever degree you can, but it's okay to garden. It's okay to find people, to build community. That's actually, all of it is actually working to build a stronger democracy.
Yeah. And I also think the extent to which you can fight back against the soul sickness of now, and like people finding things in people to love and that make you reinvest and love the country can be a big part of that. But one thing that I look to you for is there's kind of nothing new under the sun. Like what I love about history, and I have a renewed appreciation for history, in some ways because of you being able to sort of bring to us in these moments to say, hey, not only have we been in dark places before as a country, but here's how we got through them. That has been deeply helpful for me to be like, okay, humans are going to human. You said this earlier. And we just have an obligation to fight through this. And we can look to history to say, we've been in some really dark places before and we've gotten through it and found better outcomes. And so that just gives me a lot of hope. That is what you do with history, right? I don't want to put words into your mouth, but
professionally, I study the importance of ideas in changing society. Other historians study other things. But what really always jumps out to me, especially in hard times, is that nobody knows what tomorrow's going to bring. When people say to me, that's it, it's all over, we're done. It's like, how do you know that? We don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. And there's so many game changers out there. I mean, you look, for example, at the Iran war that Trump declared, and we could go into great detail against, about what happened there. It seems to me, again, I can't see the future, but it seems to me that there's very little that anybody could have done to turn the world more quickly toward renewable energy than have Trump invade Iran and lose the Strait of Hormuz. And that was a twist I didn't see coming.
Here we are. People are still like, we need oil.
I think about the people who in times that looked really, really dark stepped forward and said, listen, I'm putting everything on the line here, whether it was my husband's people who volunteered for the Civil War in summer of 1862, which was virtually a death sentence. One of them didn't come home. Or people like my mother signing up to fight World War II in 1943. You didn't know it was coming, but they were willing to put their skin in the game to make sure it came out the right way. And of course, that's exactly what the founders did with the Declaration of Independence, saying, we're going to give this a try, and we really hope it works out. It's an extraordinary leap of faith, but it's those leaps of faith that have actually expanded American democracy through people like Fannie Lou Hamer, for example. And I will say that when you look back at the past, and it always, as I say, it always looks better when you look backward. If you were living through the second civil rights movement, what you saw in the news and what you internalized was Bull Connor ordering the fire hoses turned on children. And you saw the bombings and so on. But when people think about the civil rights movement now, they don't think about Bull Connor so much as they think about Ralph Abernathy or Dr. King or Amelia Boynton or some of the leaders of the movement who made things turn out right. So I think people tend to forget just how fraught it is to try and move that ball, that democratic ball forward. One of the things that I always think about, and this is a weird leap, but I was writing a piece once on the Great Crash of 29. And I'm like, I don't want to write about the crash. Everybody writes about the crash. And I thought, I'll write about the night before the crash, the way people were living the night before the crash. And I knew that the economy was completely unstable and that it was all going to be going, but I wanted to see what they did the night before. And the New York Times was all about, it was the opening of the opera. And so people are in their fancy clothes and they're covering the opera and, everything is glitzy and beautiful. It's the great miracle, right? This economy is booming and it's great. And there's a little tiny article in the New York Times about a man who died by suicide that night because his business had failed and he couldn't deal with the fact he was a failure and so on and so forth. And it has always stuck with me because even when I read it, I was like, no, wait one more day and you will see that you are not alone and you can be part of the rebuilding. And I always think about that when people say, that's it, it's over. And I'm like, no, you just got to hang on one more day because you don't know what's going to happen in that next day.
That's so interesting. The cynical part of me is like, or at least you would have had company in your misery.
Well, the way the article was written, it did suggest that he...
Sarah Longwell lets the cynical part of her mind do a lot of the decision making.
Felt he was a business failure, and even having company in that might have made a real difference in his life.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's what they say, right? Misery loves company. I want to pivot to a more hopeful note.
Not for good reasons,
even when these voters were conflicted, people in the focus groups absolutely had a degree of pride in America, even if it didn't take the form that a lot of our usual 4th of July celebrations take. Let's listen.
The thing I'm proud about is that when my parents came in 1976 to the United States, there was very few people of color, mostly white in Boise, Idaho, where I grew up. And my father built a life and he was a professor at the university and rose through administration. And to think that even given that time, that was something he could do. And that was, people would accept because that was, an environment that's primarily Caucasian, very limited minorities. And for him to be able to do that. So I'm proud of at that time that happened.
The only thing I can say that I am proud of is with technology, there seems to be, there's less of forgetting the stories from like America's history that aren't good. So like the movement bombing and that happened in Philadelphia in 1985. Like I feel like there's been more education on that in the past couple of years because of technology. I actually had a post that went viral on Threads posting about it. The learning about the history of gynecology and how that progressed and how Black women were tested on for it. Something that, was talked about when I was younger and it seemed kind of like a myth. And now it's more spread and more put out there. So I feel like I'm proud of the fact that we aren't forgetting the stories, whether they're good or bad.
I was raised by my great-great-great-grandmother. She was born in 1898.
Wow, that's crazy.
She was 80 years old when I was born. She is literally one generation from slavery. Literally. Her mother was a slave. She was a sharecropper.
Oh my God.
My great uncle was on the balcony when Dr. King was shot. He marched with him himself. So I have a very complicated relationship with how I'm proud of America. I can't say that I am proud of America because of the perspective and the family history that I have and the things that I know. And that I was taught, and I saw firsthand as a child. So I'll say this: I'm proud that I can do certain things, but I'm more proud of the stock that I came from to fight for me to do those things.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of different movements.
I think
and
to sum that up, and fucking Sarah Longwell's not going to do this. That woman said she's proud of her her family's tradition. She's proud of her family's adversity, proud of her family sticking it through when even the entire country was against them. She's proud of that. And that is her American story. Just like I think that's what Heather Cox Richardson is doing with her Letters from an American. She's an American. That's what being American means. It's something we all share. It's not something we were born into. It's not something, that was gifted to us. It's something that we all work to maintain. And, it's if you think that the pride of like the American pride, just wearing the American flag, just being proud of like, oh my God, America, Jets go brr, whatever BS weird, whatever that nonsense is. It's just like it's like the WWE of America fandom, right? It's like I don't know what that is. It's fake. I know it's fake. Yes, people enjoy it, and I'm not going to take that away from them, but it's fake. Okay, it's fake. That type of American pride is so superficial. And if that's what Sarah Longwell wants to get back, that's you can't get that back because it's fake. People wouldn't want it to begin with. So I don't know. Maybe some conservatives just miss the point. I can't fault them for it.
Yeah, things that are mainly from the people in the US that I have been proud of, especially like the queer movement. And I think, the push for authenticity and the pushes for freedom, like the women's suffrage movement. I used to be super proud of our like scientific community in America. And it's still pushing out good things. Like we had the COVID vaccines and stuff, but definitely like this administration has negatively affected that a lot. And the whole economy has too. But like when Obama was in office, I felt so proud of being American. Like we were pushing for more environmentally friendly things.
Even like non-Americans were proud of America for being American and electing Obama. That's why I just don't get it. I had this one professor say that Obama was the worst American president in all of American history. And it's just like I can't even begin to understand where that narrative is coming from because that narrative was born from decades ago, right? That narrative was born elsewhere. That narrative is anti-American, right? I'm not saying that we have to worship every president, but I mean, this same professor was getting mad at people marching against Elon Musk and Donald Trump. So, I don't know what those loyalties are, but the point being is that people really don't understand what it is to be an American. And I think people like Abdul El Said are bringing back what it means to be an American. Because we lost it somewhere, and it wasn't with Trump. The second Trump election didn't break what it meant to be an American. It just made it so unavoidable that people like Sarah Longwell were forced, they could not escape being shamed for being an American. The guilt that they have was rightfully so because this is like Heather Cox Richardson said, this is something the Republican Party has been developing since like Nixon, since that time when and it maybe it will come out in the future that this two-party system that America had that people felt so ignored by, maybe that is the new perfect dictatorship. That story being directly tied to Mexico and the pre party, the PRI. they had basically a uniparty in power for multiple years, if not multiple decades. I think I'm kind of forgetting all that shit. But that's essentially what I bet we're going to see in the future. What is going to be written in saying that these corporations had such a hold, that these wealthy elites had such a hold on American politics that it was a uniparty. It might very well still be a uniparty. I'm not sure. I'm just not that smart. But why would so many Americans feel like their vote didn't matter? Why would so many Americans feel like that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is basically the same? Why would so many Americans feel that Joe Biden and Donald Trump were basically the same? So I don't know, man. The America and feeling pride for being an American was ruined long ago. I hate to say it to Sarah Longwell, but I hope she can see that it wasn't because Donald Trump was elected a second time.
We're pushing for things to protect our environment. We were pushing Obamacare. It was super, it wasn't perfect, but like when Obamacare came out, like that was something that took a lot of my stress levels away at the time, and definitely, was something in the right direction.
So when we asked this, well, what does make you proud? The stories were so long that we'd only include a few of them here because people really talked a lot. And
what's wrong with that?
The one that you could hear, although I got to tell you ready for this? We cut this part of the clip just for time, but the woman who was talking about her being raised by her great-great-grandmother, and she says, my great uncle is Ralph D. Abernathy. Do you all know who that is? For those that don't know, he was Dr. King's right-hand man. So that's who that woman was that was talking.
I marked that. You sent me the clips to read, and that really jumped out to me what she said, because to me, that's America. It's people working
I just went
to
on a
make
freaking
things
long-ass
better.
rant
And
just to say what
one of the
they're gonna
things
say
that
right now.
I think when I talked about the loss of agency is it feels to me like a lot of what we have done, certainly in the modern day curriculum that the radical right is trying to push, is erase that agency. So instead of saying, hey, we're Americans, we have a can-do spirit, we innovate, we take care of our people, all those things. Instead, when people look at the United States from within, they see our government and they don't like the things the government is doing. And by the way, I think that goes all the way back to the Vietnam War. But one of the things that I think is so exciting about this moment is ordinary people saying, I'm proud of the fact my people came from wherever and built lives, or that my people fought so that I would have the right to vote, or that I could get a credit card. And that, to me, is what America really is the ability of people to fight to expand the principles that were articulated in the Declaration of Independence to include more and more people. And if you use that lens on American history, which, by the way, is very much the lens that we would have used until, really recently, probably the 1990s, all of a sudden you can be embarrassed about the fact that ability to get out there and change the world also meant the rise of the KKK, the rise of neo-Nazis, the extraordinary destruction of environmental resources and the countryside and so on. You can look at that and say, yeah, that's what's great about America.
I found these very heartening because everybody told their immigrant story or their descendant story, or the things that they built or their families built, or just the things that the country had done well. And you realize that even among people who are feeling very down right now, how deeply embedded American identity, whatever that means to different people, like whatever their story of America is still sitting there. And when you tap into it, they feel really good about it. And that part was nice. We also asked these focus groups about what kinds of things they wanted to see done for America to rebuild from the Trump era. And let's listen to what they said.
I think we need to have accountability. I think that's the biggest thing. Like we constantly say, oh, what's going on right now is illegal, but then nothing happens. Like nobody's held accountable for what they're doing, or it's so slow to happen that basically, like, yeah, it might be illegal, but they do it anyway because who's going to stop them?
Because there's only one party that's really actively holding Donald Trump accountable, and they're not even doing it that much, honestly.
It means nothing. And the only way that I'm going to be able to look back at all of this and say, hey, we're in a better place, is that like people have to be held accountable for the stuff that they're doing, or else what's the point of law?
I'd be more proud of the country if I could see that the country is really working for the common everyday person. So rather than like the richer get richer and the poor get poorer, you know, anyone and everyone has access to medical care. You know, if you get a car accident, you're not going to want to wobble away out of fear that you can't afford it. Like it's going to put you in debt.
I think we need to close some loopholes like the age limit for the president. Anybody who's running for the president, we need to cap the age limit. Even being a Democrat, I felt like Biden was too old. Trump is too old. We need to cap an age limit there.
I don't know where it came in, and I know they've always been there, but the presidential pardons, we need to start there and get rid of those. And a lot of them, before they leave office in the 11th hour, are pardoning people. And we don't hear about a lot of them, but start there. I don't understand that. If we've convicted somebody of a crime, they've been found guilty, that's the last chapter in the last page of the book. You don't get to rewrite that book just because you like the guy or the girl, or, you know, they've contributed to your campaign.
So Heather, I talk with my guy JVL all the time on the Secret Podcast. We sort of have this ongoing argument about what we're going to do to push ourselves out of this time, right? And so if a Democrat is elected, what are they going to do to make sure that this moment never happens again? And he tends to go for stuff like
why is it a Democrat's responsibility? Why the F is it Democrats' responsibility to make sure Donald Trump never happens again? Sorry.
You know, adding DC statehood, prosecuting the crap out of the Trump administration, which I'm super on board with. But what do you want to see done in a post-Trump world to help sort of propel us forward? Tell me what your pitch is for the post-Trump future.
So I'll give you my small pitch, if you will, and then the bigger pitch. The small pitch is we got to get rid of Citizens United. We got to get huge money out of politics.
Thank you, Citizens
because
United.
That will make it easier then for new and different people to enter politics, even before you get to the place of elections, where now, especially after the June 30th decision of the Supreme Court, we've got yet more money flowing into politics. And remember, we get the overturning of Citizens United in 2010 after the American people have elected Barack Obama. And with, you know, this real push away from the focus on Congress and on widespread voting and toward a unitary executive, which we're seeing play out here. So the first thing I'm going to do is wave my magic wand and get rid of Citizens United and big money in politics. That being said, accountability, I'm going to pull a Trump here, 600%. We need to have 600% of accountability because, you know, I maintain, first of all, the lack of accountability for the Confederacy is one of the country's original sins in its second founding. But
that's
also
crazy.
that if
that's crazy. And you can see Sarah Long's little reaction, like, what does that have to do with anything, Heather?
First of all, the lack of accountability for the Confederacy is one of the country's original sins in its second founding. But
she's
also,
like, America sinned? America has sins? Bro, the original sin of the founding of America was the fact that they allowed slavery to be legal. They had in the Declaration of Independence, you know, no man shall, you know, all men are created equal or whatever it was. And then they turned around and had laws saying that slavery was still legal, that men actually are not equal. Some men are more equal than other men. And that was the original sin that happened. And that's why we had the Civil War. It played out before our very eyes. You know, forget about the Odyssey, bro. We need Christopher Nolan to do this like pre-Civil War. We need Christopher Nolan to tell the Dred Scott story. We need Christopher Nolan to like you know, make it interesting for these I was going to say these boomers to understand. No, these Zoomers to understand. These Zoomers and Gen Alpha to understand that there was great freaking things that happened in American history, and it's not something to be ashamed of. And I don't know why. I think maybe people got ashamed of American pride because it was the twisted, superficial American pride that was being put on display all the time. And if we can bring back genuine, authentic American pride, like how I'm saying we see with Abdul El-Sayed, like how we see with Bernie Sanders, like how we see, with Zoran Mamdani, this pride in their city, pride in their government, pride in their, and it's not like this over, this one of the 7 deadly sins type of pride. This is just being proud of something that you were told to actually be ashamed of.
So that if Richard Nixon had gone to trial, he didn't even have to get convicted. If he had gone to trial, I do not think we would have had the Iran-Contra affair. I do not think we would have had weapons of mass destruction. And I do not think Donald Trump would have run for the presidency, because we would have established that nobody is above the law. So part of that accountability means getting rid of the decision in Donald Trump versus the United States, in which the Supreme Court overturned the entire principle of the Declaration of Independence and said that, in fact, we were not all equal before the law, that one animal was more equal than all the other animals and was not going to have to answer for crimes committed.
I just said that. But it's literally, she's quoting Animal Farm. George Orwell, George Orson, 1978, 1984, 1924, Animal Factory is happening. It's literally, I can't believe it. Richard Nixon was the first American that got to experience that some people are above the law. What the F, man? What the F?
Part of his official duties, which is absolutely contrary to everything this country has ever stood for. So those are my first two things. But the larger picture here is that we have let the machinery of American democracy rust to the point that it no longer represents the American people. And we're going to have some pretty big reworkings of those things. I'm 100% on board for having a bigger Supreme Court, regardless of who is in charge of it, because we haven't expanded the Supreme Court since 1869. And we have a lot more people in it now.
Yes.
And we have a lot more, circuits and a lot more need for more people who can handle more cases.
Because the
So
Supreme
aside
Court,
from the political
literally
makeup,
gets to
which
pick
by
and
the
choose
way
what
also
cases they
needs
want.
to be adjusted, because right
what
now
what kind of job do you get to say, I'll review this case, but not that one. That one goes back, needs to be done by the lower courts again. If it's too much work, hire more people. And so that's crazy. That's crazy that Heather Cox Richardson said she's on board for adding more Supreme Court justices. That's something that I thought was such a radical left idea. Crazy.
Not represent the American people. It's been packed with right-wing extremists. That's going to have to be addressed. But not just that. We have the issue of the Electoral College, which was never supposed to be winner take all. It was set up to be representational. It's one of the big beefs I have with Thomas Jefferson is that he realizes in 1796 that if in fact the Virginia delegation votes winner take all, he would have won in 1796. So he gets them to do it in 1800, and very quickly we get the imposition of winner take all in the Electoral College. James Madison says, you can't do this. We need to amend the Constitution, but anybody who gets in office under that system doesn't want to change it. Then we cap the Electoral College in 1929 when it becomes clear that there will be more and more representation in Congress from the cities rather than the countryside if there is not a cap, if Congress doesn't cap it. And so we end up with a cap that really privileges people who live in the country versus who live in the city. We got to fix that. We got the problems now with the advent of high rises in cities and the establishment of certain states that are way bigger than others because of that ability to build vertically as opposed to horizontally. We now have a case where 2 senators represent all the people in California and 2 senators represent all the people in Idaho. Something's got to be done about that.
Yeah,
and I'm not suggesting I have the answers. We also, of course, do have to have the, new states added simply because of the number of people in places like Washington, D.C. But in the big picture, A democracy cannot survive if people feel they are not represented by the people in power. And what we have now is a system where our Supreme Court has been confirmed by people who represent far fewer than the number of people who voted against those individuals on the court. We have presidents who are getting elected and put in office, even though they have lost the popular vote. We have, even when things are incredibly popular,
what was
like
up with
the
that? That
idea
happened with
of
George W. Bush.
common sense gun safety regulations, even though huge numbers of people want that, it can't be passed in our current system. We have to fix that system or people will lose faith in democracy. And when they lose faith in democracy, the only, you're looking either at violence from the state to keep those people down, or you're looking at a revolution. And as a good conservative like yourself, Sarah, I don't believe in instability in a society. And so those of us who call ourselves conservatives, and obviously I'm playing with that word a bit there, should want to have a stable society. And in order to do that, we got to fix the Supreme Court. We got to fix the House of Representatives. We got to fix the Electoral College. And we got to fix the Senate. Other than that, it's a pretty easy job.
Big ass burn.
Boy, with only 4 minutes left, I'm trying to decide how much of that I take on.
Bro, what a chicken. What a freaking chicken. It's your own show and you're like, oh, I can't address all of that with only 4 minutes left. Sarah Longwell's a chicken.
This is maybe the one sort of pushback I would offer, which is I'm not reflexively for expanding the court. I'm open to the discussion about what we do about, and I'm aggressively interested in the discussion about what we do with like a lot of our sclerotic institutions that I think a bunch of us jumped early on to say, well, we need to defend American institutions without over time realizing that a lot of these institutions actually really did need to be reformed and that the American people wanted it. And that's why they keep hiring Donald Trump, is they do want something different. But in terms of representation, I'm with you 100%.
She said people
I
keep
also
hiring
think
Donald
these are sort of
Trump,
big
bro.
intractable
We didn't hire
problems.
him.
Like, I don't know how you're going to get around 2 senators for Idaho and 2 senators for California. I mean, I've always thought if we could just send 200,000 Californians to Montana, we can start to even this bad boy out. But I'm not sure we're going to get it to change the other way.
No, do you think Montana wants people from California? No, they don't. People. Oh my God, they're so delusional.
I worry that we spend a lot of times on solutions, or a lot of time and energy on solutions that are probably not going to happen structurally for some of the structural things you're trying to correct for. And so I'm always trying to think about what can be done, like what realistically,
because people are like,
well, we got to get rid of the Electoral College, and I'm like, okay, that is just not going to happen.
What? She's making fun of Heather Cock Richardson and saying that the getting rid of the Electoral College is not a realistic solution. Bro, you have small dreams. Sarah Longwell has small dreams. Either that or she wants to have the Electoral College and she wants to have more Richard Nixons. Just not when they are like Donald Trump types.
And be done. Like what realistically, because people are like, well, we got to get rid of the Electoral College. And I'm like, okay, that is just not going to happen.
But how about if we made it representational again, as it was always supposed to be?
Tell me, so would we need 60 votes in the Senate to make that happen?
I'm in the process here of selling it to people who say we have to keep them the way they've always been. And if you came back to them and said, it was supposed to be this way, and they changed it for political advantage, would people say, oh, well?
Stardust City Hag said a Republican lesbian is not realistic either, and yet here she is trying to exist. Hey. I'm a bodies and spaces type of person. I'm sorry. Oh God. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, she's trying. It's an uphill battle for sure. Maybe if she was okay with packing the Supreme Court, she'd be a little bit more likely to get more Republicans on her side.
Okay, because then our candidates would have to go to more than 6 states every season, which makes me crazy. Because I'm like, so you live in Mississippi, you don't matter? You live in Massachusetts, you don't matter? They should have to sell themselves everywhere, which they would have to if they were representational.
I think just coming up as a young conservative, you're sort of the Electoral College as a way to protect minority from the majority tyranny.
No, come on. When has the Electoral College protected any? What she's going to say is the majority rule with minority protections. When has the Electoral College protected the minority? It's only worked against, it's protected the elite minority, I'll tell you that much, but the people that are suffering from tyranny, it's not protecting them.
Made sense to me. As I've gotten older, I have become, and as now somebody who like is deep inside crosstabs and looks at the states, everything, I'm like, this is insane. It actually is an insane process now. Like the idea that if your vote is
when she didn't understand it, she agreed
Tennessee,
with
it doesn't count, or if it's in California, and as a result, people participate less and they don't educate themselves as much because they're like, well, I've got to spend $1 billion in Pennsylvania. It is crushing our political system to live this way.
Citizens
that being
United,
said, I also don't look at that as one of the reforms that I think gets done.
Really?
I can't see a path for it.
My practical ones were the first
because you don't want to see a path for it.
But I think that there is a
Sarah Longwell does not want to see a path for ending Citizens United because she probably funded by some wealthy donors.
larger point here. And I do want to point out that one of the reasons we're in the mess we're in is because the Republican Party between 1889 and 1890 recognized they couldn't command the popular vote. So they wanted to hold the Senate. And that's how we got the addition of 6 new states in 12 months between 1889 and 1890. We get North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and Washington.
All of these
so
random
that they will be able to hold the Senate. And even at the time, there weren't enough people in those states. And I'm not suggesting we take that statehood away from them, but the idea that we couldn't possibly acknowledge the fact that Washington, D.C. has more people in it than some states in the United States and thereby make it a state. We say it's not possible, but, I think you swing for the fences in this part of our lives.
Now you're speaking my language, though, because this is, I am a big reformer. I believe we need reform, but I was sort of making a joke about moving Montana, but you want to play constitutional hardball like Republicans do? First of all, I believe in DC statehood. I live here. I would like representation.
Okay. Curiously, I did not before Trump.
Oh, really? Why?
Because I hadn't examined it very closely at the time. And I sort of thought, I love that it was set up historically to represent the entire country. And then I realized you could have those federal spaces and continue to have get representation.
Yeah. But why not due to California? Northern California and Southern California is a state, or Central California. It's 3 different states.
Because that's the problem that got us in here to begin with. We just need one Dakota, one Carolina.
Taking stuff away, but you can't do that. But I think you can add things and you can let these states make those choices. And sometimes I think we're not being creative enough. Everybody kind of jumps to the same 3 or 4 things that are tough to do. But I think that there's other things that haven't been.
What other things? What other mental gymnastic creative stuff is she going to try to do? She's ridiculous, bro. So yes, her solution to the North Dakota, South Dakota having 4 senators representing more people than Washington, D.C. is to split up California into different states. And that way, you think conservative Republicans are going to let that happen? Either way, it's donezo. So it's like, might as well just get rid of the whole freaking Senate.
I mean, people are like, wow, California is its own, big economy. And I'm like, okay, well then still operate as an economy, but give yourself, I don't know. There just seems like there are ways to do that.
What do you mean, bro? The federal government has to take, that's the part of being a state in the union, is that the tax revenue goes to the federal government, and then the federal government takes California taxes and gives it to, Texas or Tennessee or, whatever other state that's not collecting enough in taxes to provide for their poorest of people or, to give simple services. Sorry, this is taking me forever to finish.
Make it even more simple. This is easy for me to do because I'm virtually innumerate, but there have to be mathematical formulas nowadays to be able to say, this is how we guarantee in the Electoral College, for example, that these people are accurately represented. And I don't know what those are. Believe me, I don't know what those are, but we have to be thinking creatively about adapting the machinery of government to the modern era, or risk losing the faith of American people in the fact that their government represents them. And it's not just about the federal government, by the way, although it really plays out in elections and so on. When in federal elections, by having districts that are so huge now, people don't feel like they have any relationship to their congressperson. I mean, I live in a really small state, so I actually know my congress people, and that's the way this system was designed to be. So that, you know, I've never had to go to one of them, but if there were an emergency, I would actually know where to go. I know where their offices are. I recognize them on the street. You can't do that in California or Illinois or Florida or Texas. And that lack of relationship of individuals in now these giant districts of more than 500,000, sometimes more than 750,000 people, that's something that we could find a way to remedy. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, the state of Southern California that has its own 2 senators, its own governor, and its own, you know, government that people can know.
California could have a lot more states.
I mean, but why are these women? Why are these women? Are they so boring? They're not saying anything interesting at all. Damn, Bishonen. Damn. Not Zoomer friendly.
We could, and we are only brainstorming here because I think there are very strong historical reasons not to do this, and even today reasons not to do this. You could just say a state in the United States of America is going to be 1 million people, and so all of a sudden New York City becomes
3
boroughs
states
that are states. I guess I'm not suggesting we do that, but there will be ways.
No bad ideas in a brainstorm. Look. And then I'm going to close out and let just do a quick some sound from how pumped people were about the World Cup. But the real America 250 is everybody being excited about the World Cup.
You're not wrong on that, actually.
No, I know.
It said a lot about Americans and about who we like to think of ourselves as. It was great. It was great watching people discover the Waffle House, you know?
Yeah, it is. It's when you can see your country through someone else's eyes.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna leave it there. Let me get the music going, the outro music. We'll leave it here for today. But yeah, of course, as always, Heather Cox Richardson is one of the most smartest people I know. Was shown in a box. It's like they're vague posting. I just don't see how it's relevant to what's going on in the political climate. They aren't being too specific enough. Yeah, they are talking at kind of a higher level or a more jargon-heavy level. So don't worry about it. That's why I was reacting to it and giving my interpretations. But thank you for joining me today, Bishon in a Box, and Start a City Hack. And special big shout out, thank you to Kamal Namou. Fuck, I fucked up his name. Namou. Kamal Namou, I think. Big shout out to him for coming on the stream and for taking the time to really educate us on what it means to be treasurer. It's kind of crazy that Jesse Armendariz' relative is also running for this spot. So we'll see. But anyways, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Angelina Tucci. We'll be back next week with more live streams, more interviews, more articles probably. So things are developing very well. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with what we are covering. Hit the like button on this video. It helps by getting the word out to other people. If you can, share this with somebody who you think might enjoy watching it, especially if someone is living in the city of Fontana and they have the opportunity to vote for the treasurer of the city. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good one. Thank you. See you later. Have a good weekend. Bye, everyone.